There are forces in the universe that were never meant to meet, powers so fundamentally opposed that their collision doesn't just shake worlds, it fractures the very foundations of reality itself. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, where humanity fights an eternal war against extinction, something impossible happened. Something that would make even the Chaos Gods pause in their eternal machinations and the Emperor himself take notice from his golden throne. This is the story of what occurred when a warrior from beyond the veil, a being of pure vengeance and unrelenting fury, stepped into a galaxy already drowning in blood. If you crave more tales from the Dark Millennium, where impossible scenarios unfold and titans clash, pledge your loyalty with a subscribe. The Emperor protects those who stand with us in the darkness, and we've got stories that will shake your understanding of power itself. The tear in reality began small, no larger than a man's fist, suspended 3 meters above the ash wastes of Cthonia. The mining world, birthplace of the Warmaster Horus Lupercal himself, had seen 10,000 years of exploitation, its surface scarred by Prometheum refineries and Hive City ruins. The sky burned perpetually orange with industrial waste, and the ground crunched beneath boots with the ossified remains of forgotten workers. It was a world of endings, of exhausted resources and abandoned hope, fitting perhaps for what was about to begin. The warp rift expanded with the sound of reality screaming, not the typical tear that heralded demonic incursion, festooned with baroque corruption and the laughter of thirsting gods. This was different, clean, surgical, wrong in a way that made even the most hardened veterans of the long war take notice. The edges didn't writhe with tentacles or weep with reality's blood. They simply existed, a door between dimensions that had no right to open. Seismic sensors in the remaining functioning hive detected the anomaly immediately. Margot's explorators 300 kilometers away registered energy readings that defied their most sacred algorithms. Astropaths monitoring the system's warp currents felt something brush past their consciousness. Not the familiar malevolence of chaos, but something older, simpler, and infinitely more dangerous, pure, uncorrupted, furious. The figure that stepped through stood shorter than a Primarch, but moved with the presence of one. The armor was unfamiliar, not the blessed ceramite of the Adeptus Astartes, nor the baroque power armor of Chaos champions. Praetor suit. The designation would have meant nothing to Imperial tech priests. Its origins from a reality where humanity had faced different hells and forged different solutions. Green plating, battle-scarred and scorched, covered a frame that radiated barely contained violence. A helmet with a forward-swept visor that held no eye lenses, no decorative flourishes, nothing but brutal functionality. The Doomslayer had arrived in the Warhammer 40K universe. He stood motionless for exactly 3 seconds, sensors in his armor analyzing this new reality. Atmospheric composition, breathable but heavily polluted. Gravity, standard. Warp energy saturation, catastrophically high. Demonic presence, confirmed. His hands clenched into fists, and the sound of his armor servos carried across the ash wastes like a promise of violence. Behind him, the rift sealed with a sound like thunder played backward, reality stitching itself closed. But the damage was done. The impossible had occurred. A warrior who had fought through hell itself, who had made demons fear the dark, who had killed gods in their own domains, now stood in a galaxy where such entities ruled openly, where 4 dark powers corrupted entire star systems with a thought, where humanity's brightest hope sat imprisoned on a throne of gold. His dreams of conquest turned to desperate survival. The Slayer's motion tracker activated, reading the environment. 600 meters northeast, movement. Thermal signatures registering above ambient. 17 contacts, no 23. Classification, unknown, but the energy readings. His armor's threat assessment system screamed warnings. These weren't the demons he knew, not exactly. but they were close enough. A pack of blood letters materialized from the warp-soaked ruins, drawn by the dimensional disturbance like sharks to blood. Lesser demons of Khorne, each standing 8 feet tall with crimson skin stretched over inhuman musculature, brass collars at their throats, and hell blades that wept with the blood of realities. They shrieked their arrival in a language that existed before human tongues, a sound designed to freeze prey in primal terror. The Doomslayer began walking toward them. His helmet registered the sonic attack, filtered it, dismissed it. He'd heard worse in the depths of Argent de Nur. His targeting system locked onto the lead demon, calculating trajectory, velocity, and the most efficient path through their formation. The super shotgun materialized in his hands from his equipment system, shells the size of a man's thumb chambered and ready. The blood letters charged with the eagerness of newborn demons, fresh from the warp and hungry for skulls. They had fought for 10,000 years across countless battlefields, had tasted the blood of space marines and mortals alike. They were veterans of the eternal war, blessed by the blood god himself. They had never encountered anything like this. The first demon closed to 20 meters before the Slayer moved. One moment he was walking, steady and inevitable. The next, he was airborne, thrusters in his armor igniting for a split second of impossible acceleration. The super shotgun spoke twice, and 2 blood letters ceased to exist in explosions of warp stuff and ichor. He landed among them like a meteor, and then there was only violence. The disturbance rippled through the immaterium like a stone cast into still water, and across half the galaxy, those sensitive to the warp's currents felt it. On the bridge of the Vengeful Spirit, flagship of the Warmaster's fleet and mobile fortress from which the greatest betrayal in human history was being orchestrated, alarms began to sound. Not the standard proximity warnings or tactical alerts that marked the endless skirmishes of the Great Crusade turned rebellion, but something deeper. The ship's navigator, locked in her sanctum behind 6 inches of blessed silver, screamed into the Vox system with a voice that shouldn't have been physically possible. Something has entered the materium, something that doesn't belong. Horus Lupercal stood in his strategium, surrounded by hololithic projections of 100 worlds marked for compliance or corruption. The Warmaster of Chaos, chosen of the 4, stood nearly 12 feet tall in his Baroque Terminator plate, the eye of Horus emblazoned across his chest in defiance of the Emperor who had once been his father. His face, once noble beyond mortal comprehension, now bore the subtle marks of chaos ascension. Eyes that held too much knowledge, features that shifted almost imperceptibly when viewed from different angles, a presence that made even his own sons uncomfortable in his shadow. He dismissed the tactical displays with a gesture, his attention fully captured by the navigator's report. Ezekiel Abaddon, first captain of the Lunar Wolves, now Sons of Horus, stood at his Gene father's right hand, his Terminator armor painted the deep black that had become their new standard. The topknot of his helm swayed as he turned toward the Warmaster. "My lord, the Psychers report an anomaly, not a demonic incursion, something else." Horus's enhanced mind, already processing information at speeds that would liquefy a mortal brain, accessed the Vengeful Spirit's sensor net. Data streamed directly into his consciousness through neural interfaces that married the Emperor's genius with the Mechanicum's darkest arts. Cthonia, his birthworld, the cradle of his legion before they had been scattered across the stars by the Emperor's ambition. A smile touched his perfect features, though whether it was warmth or predatory anticipation, even Abaddon couldn't tell. Cthonia, Horus mused, his voice carrying harmonics that hadn't existed before his bargain with the Chaos Gods. How appropriate that whatever this is would manifest on my homeworld. The universe has a sense of poetry, it seems. He pulled up the tactical data, his mind passing through sensor readings that made no sense. Energy signatures that registered as neither warp-based nor technological in origin. A single biological entity that had somehow survived, no, dominated, an encounter with 17 bloodletters of Khorne. The demons had been banished back to the warp in under 40 seconds. The recording from nearby surveillance servitors showed only fragments, static corrupted images of green armor and violence so efficient it bordered on artistry. "Expand the search parameters," Horus commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "I want every asset in the Cthonia system tracking this anomaly. Auspex sweeps, orbital pict captures, anything that moves on that planet's surface. And send word to the 1,000 suns. I want their most skilled sires analyzing this. Something has entered my galaxy, and I will know what it is." Around him, the bridge erupted into controlled activity. Servitors hardwired into their stations transmitted orders across the fleet. Tech priests whispered in binary cant to the machine spirits of their equipment, coaxing enhanced performance from already overclocked systems. 3 decks below, psychically gifted seers gathered in warded chambers, their minds reaching out through the immaterium to touch the edges of this newcomer's presence. They recoiled instantly, several collapsing with blood streaming from their eyes and ears. "Report!" Abaddon barked into the vox, his hand instinctively moving to the hilt of his power sword. The response came from Hector Vexian, one of the sons of Horus's remaining librarians, who hadn't yet fully embraced the mutations of the warp. His voice shook with something that might have been fear or might have been awe. "My lord, first captain, we cannot read him, cannot touch his mind. It's not that he's shielded, it's that he doesn't exist in the warp at all. There's nothing there, no presence, no soul signature, no reflection in the immaterium. He's a void where a person should be." Horus turned to face the viewport, staring out at the stars that had once represented humanity's manifest destiny and now marked territories in an eternal war. His reflection in the armored glass showed eyes that burned with inner fire, a gift from the chaos gods that let him see truths mortals were never meant to comprehend. A being with no warp presence in a galaxy saturated with it. Fascinating. Could it be some weapon of the Emperor? Abaddon asked, the name of their former master spoken with venom. Unlikely. My father's weapons all bear his mark, his psychic fingerprint woven into their very existence. This is something else entirely. Horus accessed another data stream, watching as orbital surveillance finally locked onto the anomaly. The figure moved across Chthonia's surface with purpose, heading directly toward the largest concentration of warp corruption on the planet, an abandoned hive that had been claimed by a warband of Khornitic cultists 3 months prior. The Warmaster watched as the green-armored figure approached the hive's outer defenses. Cultists opened fire with autoguns and stubbers, rounds that would have shredded an unarmored human. The figure didn't slow, didn't dodge, simply walked through the hail of fire as bullets sparked harmlessly off his armor. When he reached the first defensive position, the violence was surgical and absolute. Bodies flew, blood sprayed, and within seconds, the entire firebase was silent. "He fights like a Primarch," Abaddon observed, his voice carrying a note of respect despite himself. "No," Horus corrected, his enhanced perception catching details in the combat feed that even his first captain missed. "He fights like something that has only ever known war. Look at the efficiency, the absolute lack of wasted motion. Every action serves the singular purpose of destruction. There's no glory-seeking, no rage, no emotion at all. Just perfect mechanical violence." The feed showed the figure entering the hive proper, and the surveillance systems began failing one by one as he delved deeper into chaos-corrupted territory. But before the last picked capture went dark, Horus saw something that made even his transhuman heart quicken. The warrior had stopped in front of a massive gore-splattered shrine to Khorne, 8 feet of brass and bone and screaming faces. Without hesitation, without ceremony, he'd raised some kind of shoulder-mounted weapon and obliterated it in a single shot. The warp around Cthonia had rippled with Khorne's rage at the desecration, and the warrior had simply moved deeper into the hive, hunting. "My lord," Abaddon said quietly, "your orders." Horus was silent for a long moment, his superhuman mind running through possibilities and probabilities. Something had entered his galaxy, something that killed demons with contemptuous ease, something that apparently bore no allegiance to the Corpse Emperor or the Chaos Gods. A wild card in a game that had been playing out for centuries. Dangerous, unpredictable, absolutely fascinating. "We watch," Horus decided. Let him purge the Khornat infestation on Cthonia. Let him reveal his capabilities, and then... The Warmaster smiled, and it was the smile of an apex predator spotting new prey. "Then we'll see if this warrior is a potential ally, a useful tool, or simply another obstacle to be crushed beneath the boots of the true Imperium." He turned from the viewport, his mind already racing ahead to contingencies and strategies. "Abaddon, prepare a reconnaissance force. Nothing large, a single squad of Terminators, veterans who can observe and survive. I want eyes on this anomaly at all times. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary." "As you command, Warmaster." The hive had been called Infernus Prime before the cultists claimed it, one of Chthonia's countless failed settlements where ore refinement had stripped the land and poisoned the workers. Now it bore no name at all, just a designation in corrupted data logs as Site 88, a festering wound in reality where the warp bled through and Khorne's faithful gathered to worship through violence. 3,000 cultists called it home, alongside 24 bloodletters that had been bound to the materium through sacrificial rites and demonic pacts. The Doomslayer entered through the main gate, which hung open like a broken jaw. The first wave of cultists met him in the outer plaza, a killing ground designed for exactly this purpose. 30 men and women wearing flak armor decorated with the 8-pointed star, their faces hidden behind crude masks fashioned from the skulls of their victims. They'd set up heavy stubbers in reinforced positions, overlapping fields of fire that could shred a Lehman Russ tank given enough time. When the green armored figure appeared in their sights, the warband's leader, a former PDF sergeant named Corvin who'd seen his share of combat before Chaos claimed him, gave the order to fire. The plaza erupted in thunder and muzzle flash. Hundreds of rounds per second filled the air with lethal metal, tracers painting geometric patterns of death across the open space. The heavy stubbers shook on their mounts, their crews screaming praises to the blood god as they poured fire into the approaching target. The Slayer raised his left arm, and an energy shield flickered to life. Technology that shouldn't have existed, wouldn't exist for millennia if it ever appeared in this reality at all. Rounds impacted the barrier and disintegrated, their kinetic energy absorbed and dispersed harmlessly. He walked forward at a steady pace, his right hand reaching to his back where the super shotgun magnetically locked to his armor. Corvin watched through his magnoculars as the figure closed the distance, seemingly unbothered by the apocalyptic firepower being directed at him. A cold fist of doubt squeezed the warband leader's chest, something he hadn't felt since before Khorne's blessing had burned away his fear. "Cease fire!" he screamed into the vox. "Cease fire and prepare for close." The Slayer's shield dropped, and in the same instant, he launched forward with his suit's thrusters. The acceleration would have liquefied a normal human, but the Praetor suit's inertial dampeners handled the G-forces with ease. He covered 40 meters in under a second, closing to optimal range, and the super shotgun spoke its binary gospel. The first shot removed Corvin's upper body from existence. The second erased the heavy stubber crew to his right, their bodies painting the rockcrete wall behind them in a red mist that would have pleased Khorne if his servants hadn't died screaming. The Slayer landed among the cultists like a falling star, and then there was only the work. His gauntleted fist caught one cultist in the chest, the impact shattering ribs and pulping organs. The body flew backward into two of his comrades, the three of them collapsing in a tangle of broken limbs. A chain axe swung at his head from behind. Good instincts, but too slow, and he caught the weapon mid-swing, ripped it from the cultist's hands, and drove it through its former owner's sternum. The roaring teeth bit through corrupted flesh and bone, painting the Slayer's armor with arterial spray. The heavy flamer team tried next, one cultist supporting the fuel tanks while his partner aimed the nozzle. Promethium gel erupted in a stream of liquid fire, a weapon that had burned heretics and Xenos alike for 10,000 years. The Slayer's armor registered the temperature spike, 200 degrees Celsius at point of impact, and compensated. Heat-resistant plating and advanced cooling systems that had been designed to operate in the literal fires of hell handled it without strain. He walked through the flames like they were morning mist. The flamer operator barely had time to register this impossibility before the Slayer grabbed his weapon's nozzle and redirected it into the fuel tanks. The explosion turned both cultists into human torches, their screams adding to the symphony of violence that echoed through the plaza. The Slayer collected their burning corpses with casual efficiency, using one as a bludgeon to cave in the skull of another cultist, then hurling the flaming body into a cluster of enemies taking cover behind overturned cargo containers. A las pistol shot caught him in the shoulder. Pathetic compared to the Hell Knight plasma he'd tanked, but the Slayer's armor registered the impact and marked the shooter. Female, wearing the tattered remains of an Imperial Guard uniform under her Chaos iconography. She fired 3 more times, each shot precise and disciplined, aiming for joints and weak points in his armor. Military training, the kind that didn't vanish even when chaos corrupted the soul. The Slayer's plasma rifle materialized in his hands, weapon swap executed in the span of a thought, and he returned fire. The Argent energy bolt struck her center mass, and she ceased to exist in a flash of blue-white light that left nothing but a scorch mark and the fading smell of ozone. 11 more cultists died in the next 6 seconds as he worked through the plaza with the mechanical efficiency of a reaping machine. The last survivor, a boy who couldn't have been more than 16, dropped his autogun and fell to his knees. His mask had been knocked aside, revealing a face covered in ritual scarring and the brand of corn on his forehead. "Please," he begged, in Gothic so heavily accented the Slayer's armor translator struggled to parse it. "Please, I only wanted to be strong, I only wanted..." The Slayer executed him with a single round from his combat shotgun. Mercy wasn't in his vocabulary, and mercy for chaos was a contradiction anyway. The boy's body hit the ground with finality, and the plaza fell silent except for the crackling of flames and the moaning of the dying. 53 seconds. That's how long it had taken to clear the outer defenses. The Slayer reloaded methodically, his armor's ammunition fabrication system already working to replace expended shells. His motion tracker showed more contacts deeper in the hive, organized formations, better equipment, and something else. The energy signatures that marked demonic presence, brighter and more numerous than the scattered bloodletters he'd encountered on the ash wastes. He walked toward the hive's main entrance, leaving a trail of corpses behind him. Above, surveillance drones captured every moment, transmitting the footage to the vengeful spirit, where Horus Lupercal watched with growing interest. The Warmaster's eyes narrowed as he observed the warrior's combat doctrine, noting the absolute confidence, the complete lack of hesitation or doubt. "He's not human," Abaddon said from his position beside the Warmaster. "No human fights like that, not even an Astartes." "No," Horus agreed, his voice thoughtful. "But he was human once. You can see it in the way he moves, the tools he uses. Whatever he is now, whatever made him, he started as one of us." The Warmaster leaned forward, his enhanced vision tracking every detail of the warrior's armor, his weapons, his absolute certainty of purpose, and that makes him infinitely more dangerous than any demon. On Chthonia's surface, the Doomslayer entered the hive proper, his helmet's display marking another 63 targets between him and the structure's heart, where the largest demonic signatures pulsed, where something wearing the shape of a greater demon had established itself, feeding on the slaughter and waiting. The Slayer's hands tightened around his weapons. Good. He'd been getting bored. On Terra, in the deepest sanctum beneath the Imperial Palace, where reality itself bent to the Emperor's will, the master of mankind stirred upon his golden throne. The machinery that sustained him, that channeled his psychic might to power the Astronomicon and hold shut the webway gate that his beloved son Magnus had shattered, hummed with subtle fluctuations. For the first time in months, the Emperor's consciousness withdrew from the great game, from his eternal psychic war against the Four, and focused on something closer to the Materium. Malcador the Sigillite felt it immediately. The ancient perpetual, second only to the Emperor himself in psychic mastery, stood from his meditation and moved through corridors that few living souls knew existed. His staff, no mere symbol of office, but an artifact of terrible power, tapped against floors that predated human civilization on Terra. He reached the throne room's inner sanctum, where only he was permitted without summons, and gazed up at the golden figure trapped within machinery and duty. "My lord," Malcador said softly, his voice carrying none of the weakness his aged frame suggested. "You've felt it too." The Emperor's response came not in words, but in a psychic impression, a cascade of information and understanding compressed into a single instant of telepathic communion. Malcador staggered slightly, his staff providing the only thing keeping him upright, as his mind processed what his master had shared. An anomaly, a warrior from beyond their reality, thrust into the 40K universe by forces unknown, a being with no connection to the warp, no soul light in the immaterium, yet possessing power that rivaled his own creations. Fighting chaos with the kind of single-minded purpose that the Emperor himself had once hoped humanity would embrace before his son's betrayal had shattered that dream. "Remarkable," Malcador whispered, his ancient eyes distant as he saw through his master's vision. The Emperor was showing him fragmentary impressions, not full surveillance, but psychic echoes, ripples in the materium caused by actions so violent they registered even at this distance. He is uncorrupted, incorruptible perhaps. His soul doesn't exist in the warp at all, so chaos has no purchase on him. Another pulse of psychic communication, this one tinged with something that might have been satisfaction or might have been grim humor. The Emperor had seen countless weapons, countless warriors, countless would-be saviors of humanity across his 40,000 years of existence. But this was genuinely novel. "You believe Horus has detected him as well?" Malcador asked, already knowing the answer. Of course the Warmaster had. Horus was, after all, his finest creation, blessed with the kind of strategic genius that could see the whole board even while playing the game. The betrayal hurt no less for the pride the Emperor had once felt in his son's achievements. The confirmation came with additional context. Horus would investigate, would test this newcomer, would either attempt to recruit him or destroy him, depending on how the Warmaster's corrupted wisdom judged the threat. And if Horus failed to destroy this anomaly, Malcador's lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. "You want me to prepare a contingency, a way to contact this warrior, to potentially guide him." The Emperor's response was complex, layered with nuance that would have destroyed a lesser mind. He didn't want to control this warrior. Such a being was clearly beyond the Imperium's ability to command, but to observe, to perhaps provide information, to ensure that this warrior's crusade against chaos aligned with humanity's survival. That was possible. That was necessary. "It's a dangerous game, my lord," Malcador said carefully. If he is as powerful as the echoes suggest, drawing his attention to terror could be catastrophic. We don't know his motives, his ultimate goals. He could see the Imperium itself as something to be purged. The Emperor's response carried the weight of certainty. This warrior fought demons, fought chaos, fought corruption in all its forms with an absolutism that brooked no compromise. The Imperium, for all its flaws, for all the horrors committed in the Emperor's name, stood against chaos. Imperfectly, brutally, desperately, but it stood nonetheless. That made humanity, even in its current debased state, an ally by default. "You're betting everything on the enemy of my enemy," Malcador observed. "Very well. I'll task the Silent Sisterhood with monitoring the situation. Their null fields will allow them to approach without triggering whatever senses this warrior possesses, and I'll prepare diplomatic protocols should contact become necessary." He turned to leave, then paused, glancing back at the Golden Throne. "My lord, if this warrior can truly fight chaos unopposed by corruption, if he can walk through the warp's influence untouched, what does that say about our crusade? About the necessity of the sacrifices we've made, the compromises we've accepted?" The Emperor's response was immediate and harsh enough to make Malcador wince. They had built the Imperium with the tools available to them, in the reality they inhabited. This warrior came from elsewhere, operated under different universal laws, and his existence changed nothing about the fundamental truth of their situation. Humanity was trapped in a galaxy where gods were real, where thought and emotion given form in the warp, where survival required sacrifices that stained the soul. This warrior's immunity to chaos was his nature, not a choice that could be replicated. "Understood," Malcador said quietly. "Then we use him while we can, and hope that his crusade weakens our enemies before he turns his attention to us." He departed the sanctum, his mind already racing through possibilities and protocols, through the 1,000 ways this could unfold, and the 100 ways it could go catastrophically wrong. Behind him, the Emperor returned his attention to the wider galaxy, to the psychic beacon that guided humanity's ships through the warp, to the eternal chess game against entities that thought in timescales incomprehensible to mortal minds. But a fragment of his consciousness remained focused on that distant point of light on Cthonia, on the warrior who killed demons like they were nothing more than vermin. In 10,000 years of warfare, the Emperor had learned to recognize opportunity when it presented itself. And this, despite all the risks and uncertainties, was an opportunity. A weapon aimed at his enemies, if only he could ensure it struck the right targets. On Cthonia, the Doom Slayer descended deeper into the hive, unaware of the attention he'd garnered from both sides of humanity's civil war. His motion tracker showed the demonic signatures growing stronger, more concentrated. Good. The bigger they were, the more satisfying the kill. A roar echoed through the corridors, a sound that existed in both the Materium and the warp simultaneously. The war cry of a bloodthirster, greater demon of Khorne, announcing its presence to anything foolish enough to challenge it. The cultists had been sacrificing to this entity for months, feeding it enough blood and souls to anchor it partially to reality, making it more than just a temporary manifestation. It thought itself invincible. A god of war given form, blessed by the blood god himself, with strength enough to duel a titan and speed that could overwhelm even Primarch-forged reflexes. Its axe had tasted the blood of heroes and cowards alike, and its whip had strangled the last breath from countless champions. The Slayer heard the roar, registered it, dismissed it. He'd killed bigger. The reconnaissance force Horus had dispatched arrived in Chthonia's orbit 6 hours after the anomaly's first appearance. 5 Terminators of the Sons of Horus, each a veteran of countless campaigns, each bearing honors that would have made them heroes in any other age. They descended via drop pod, the armored projectiles screaming through Chthonia's polluted atmosphere before slamming into the ash wastes 3 kilometers from the corrupted hive. Brother Sergeant Culton emerged first, his tactical dreadnought armor painted in the midnight blue that the Sons of Horus had adopted after their fall. His helmet's auto-senses immediately began cataloging the battlefield, noting the scorch marks, the craters, the scattered remains of blood letters that hadn't fully dissolved back into the warp. "Spread out," he commanded via Vox. "Combat spacing. Whatever did this is still active." The Terminators advanced in practiced formation, their storm bolters held ready, their power fists crackling with barely contained energy. They'd fought alongside their Primarch during the Great Crusade, had turned their backs on the Emperor at Istvan III, had embraced the gifts of chaos and survived when so many others had fallen or devolved into slavering monsters. They were the best the Warmaster had to offer. They reached the hive's outer plaza and stopped. "Emperor's teeth," Brother Vorkos whispered, the oath slipping out before he could catch it, a remnant of who he'd been before the betrayal. The plaza looked like a slaughterhouse, bodies stacked and scattered in ways that suggested systematic execution rather than frenzied combat. No wasted ammunition, no collateral damage to the structure itself, just dead cultists and the smoking remains of their defensive positions. Culton knelt beside one of the corpses, examining the wound. Single shot, center mass, weapon unknown. The damage pattern doesn't match any standard Imperial or Chaos armament I've encountered. He accessed his armor's tactical database, running comparisons. Nothing. Whatever killed these cultists, it's using technology we don't recognize. "Sergeant," Brother Typhon called from the hive entrance. "Blood trail, recent, leading inside." They entered the hive, their helmet lamps cutting through darkness broken only by emergency lighting and the sickly green glow of corrupted machinery. The architecture was standard Imperial construction, corrupted by chaos worship. Pillars carved with 8-pointed stars, walls daubed with crude prayers to the blood god in dried blood, the air thick with the copper smell of old slaughter and the ozone stink of warp energy. The blood trail led them deeper, past chambers filled with ritual implements and sacrificial altars, past dormitories where cultists had lived and died in service to their dark patron. Every few meters, they found more bodies, cultists mostly, but also the occasional bloodletter, their demonic forms frozen in final moments of rage and disbelief. "Whatever this warrior is," Culton reported via long-range Vox to the vengeful spirit, "he's conducting a methodical purge. No survivors, no mercy, just efficient, brutal execution." Horus's voice came back, carrying harmonics that made even Culton's transhuman physiology uncomfortable. "Describe his combat methodology. Does he fight like an Astartes, like a Primarch?" Culton studied the bodies, the pattern of kills, the evidence of combat that painted a picture clearer than any picked capture. "Neither, my lord. An Astartes would have used squad tactics, overlapping fields of fire, coordinated advances. A Primarch would have. There would be more spectacle, more overwhelming force. This is different. It's surgical, predatory. He's hunting them." A pause, then Horus's command. "Find him. Observe only. Do not engage unless he initiates hostilities. I want to see how he fights when facing opponents worthy of his attention." The Terminators pressed forward, following the trail of carnage into the hive's central chamber. What they found there would have given pause to even the most battle-hardened warrior. The chamber had once been a cargo loading bay, 3 stories tall with gantries crisscrossing overhead and massive cargo elevators leading to sublevels. The cultists had converted it into a temple, a place where Khorne's faithful gathered to worship through gladiatorial combat and mass sacrifice. The floor was one massive brass plate inscribed with wards and runes, sticky with blood that never fully dried, surrounded by bleachers where spectators had once cheered for their favorite killers. Now it was a battlefield. The bloodthirster stood at the chamber's center, 12 feet of crimson muscle and brass armor, its wings spread wide enough to touch the walls on either side. Its axe, Fury's Edge, had been forged in the heart of a dying star and quenched in the blood of 1,000,000 innocents. Its whip, Flesh Render, had been woven from the tendons of Space Marines who'd fallen to Khorne's corruption. The greater demon radiated power that made the air shimmer and reality itself seem thin. Facing it, standing perfectly still in the center of the brass floor, was the Doomslayer. The Terminators froze at the entrance, their tactical doctrine screaming at them to find cover, to establish firing positions, to coordinate their assault. Instead, they watched, transfixed, as warrior and demon regarded each other across 30 meters of blood-stained brass. The Bloodthirster spoke first, its voice a sound that existed in both the materium and the warp, words that could drive mortals mad with their intensity. "You dare enter my domain, mortal? You dare challenge the chosen of Khorne?" The Slayer didn't respond, didn't move. His helmet's display was tracking every aspect of the demon: threat assessment, weak points, optimal attack vectors. The entity before him was powerful, far more so than the Hell Priests or Barons he'd faced in his own dimension. But power was relative, and he'd killed gods before. The Bloodthirster's rage grew at the silence, at the absolute lack of fear or respect from this tiny, armored figure. "I am Ka'Bandar's brother in blood. I have feasted on the souls of heroes. I have—" The Slayer moved. One moment he was standing still. The next he'd launched himself forward with his suit's jump jets, closing the 30-meter gap in under a second. His BFG 9000 materialized in his hands, the big fucking gun, a weapon that channeled Argent energy into a ball of contained nuclear hellfire. He fired from point-blank range. The green plasma sphere struck the Bloodthirster in the chest and detonated with the force of a tactical warhead. The greater demon's ward-covered armor held for exactly half a second before the Argent energy tore through, burning demonic essence with the kind of efficiency that even the Emperor's most powerful weapons couldn't match. The Bloodthirster screamed, a sound of pure fury and disbelief, as a fist-sized hole appeared in its torso. But greater demons didn't die easily. Ka'Bandar's brother in blood swung its massive axe in a horizontal arc that would have bisected a land raider. The Slayer ducked under it, the blade passing inches above his helmet, and delivered an uppercut with his power fist that would have crumpled tank armor. The impact lifted the Bloodthirster off its feet. 12 feet of demonic muscle and rage launched backward like it had been hit by an artillery shell. The watching Terminators stood in stunned silence. "Did he just—" Brother Vorkos began. "He punched it," Brother Typhon finished. "He punched a greater demon hard enough to knock it down." Carlton was already recording everything, his helmet's picked capture system feeding data directly to the vengeful spirit. "My lord," he voxed to Horus, his voice tight with professional control despite the impossibility he was witnessing. "The anomaly has engaged the Bloodthirster. Recommend we—" "Hold position," Horus commanded immediately. "Let them fight. I want to see this warrior's full capabilities." In the chamber's center, the real battle was just beginning. The Bloodthirster rose from where it had crashed through a cargo elevator's rusted doors, ichor the color of molten brass dripping from the wound in its chest. The greater demon's eyes, not just the two in its skull, but the dozens that opened across its armor and flesh, focused on the Slayer with something approaching genuine interest. In 10,000 years of slaughter, across 1,000,000 battlefields, it had faced Space Marines and Imperial Guard, Eldar warlocks and Tau battlesuits, even other demons in the eternal conflicts of the warp. None of them had ever hit it like that. "You are not of this reality," the Bloodthirster rumbled, its voice carrying a different quality now. Less bravado, more genuine curiosity mixed with bloodlust. "Your soul does not sing in the warp. You are empty, void, wrong. The Slayer responded by switching weapons, his BFG dissolving back into his equipment system as the crucible materialized in his right hand. The blade ignited with argent energy, a sword of pure power that burned with light that hurt to look at even through Terminator helmet filters. The weapon had been forged to kill titans, the mechanical gods of a reality that worshipped technology and silicon. In this dimension, against a demon that embodied war and rage, it would do just fine. The Bloodthirster's eyes widened fractionally, the closest thing to fear a greater demon of Khorne could express. It recognized that blade, not specifically, but conceptually. Anathema, the kind of weapon that didn't just banish demons back to the warp, but could end them permanently, could cut their threads in the great game and erase them from existence. What manner of weapon? The Slayer attacked. He closed the distance in 3 bounding leaps, his armor's enhanced mobility allowing movements that defied what should have been possible for something so heavily armored. The crucible swept in a horizontal arc, trailing light like a comet's tail. The Bloodthirster blocked with its massive axe, Fury's edge meeting the energy blade in a shower of sparks and reality distortion. The axe, forged in Khorne's own realm and blessed by the blood god himself, shattered. The greater Daemon stared at the broken weapon in its hand for exactly 1 second, an eternity in combat, before the Slayer's follow-up strike carved through its left shoulder, severing the arm that held flesh render. The demon's roar shook the entire hive structure, chunks of corroded metal raining from the ceiling as its pain and rage manifested as psychic shockwaves. Brother Culton felt his armor's wards activate, straining to protect him from the backwash of demonic fury. "By the Warmaster," he breathed, "he's actually winning." The Bloodthirster lashed out with its remaining arm, claws that could rend ceramite catching the Slayer across his chest. The Praetor armor held, but the force of the blow sent him skidding backward across the brass floor, leaving deep furrows in the metal. The demon pressed its advantage, moving with speed that shouldn't have been possible for something so massive. Its good hand wreathed in warp fire as it sought to crush this impossible opponent. The Slayer let it come. At the last possible moment, he activated his shoulder-mounted equipment launcher, and a frag grenade detonated directly in the Bloodthirster's face. The explosion would have been insignificant against the demon's armor, but the Slayer wasn't aiming for damage. He was aiming for distraction. While the greater demon reeled, momentarily blinded, the Slayer holstered the crucible and drew his super shotgun. He fired both barrels into the wound he'd already created in the demon's chest. Argent-charged buckshot tore through demonic essence, each pellet burning with energy specifically calibrated to harm entities from beyond normal reality. The Bloodthirster screamed again, this time in genuine agony rather than rage, as its physical form began to destabilize. Cracks of light appeared across its body, the Materium's laws reasserting themselves, trying to expel this warp-spawned abomination back to where it belonged. "No!" the demon roared. "I am eternal. I am Khorne's chosen. I cannot fall to..." The Slayer's fist caught it in the throat, cutting off its declaration. The punch drove the demon backward into one of the chamber's support pillars, the impact cracking the rockcrete. Before it could recover, the Slayer was on it, one hand gripping the demon's skull, the other raising the crucible high. The greater demon thrashed, its remaining strength enough to demolish buildings, but the Slayer's grip was absolute. His armor's servos whined with the strain of holding something with the strength of a demigod, but they held. The crucible came down in a vertical strike that split the Bloodthirster's skull from crown to jaw. Argent energy flooded into the wound, and the greater demon of Khorne didn't dissolve or fade. It simply ceased to exist. No dramatic return to the warp, no final curse or promise of return. One moment, a 12-foot engine of destruction occupied space. The next, there was nothing but falling ash and the fading scent of ozone. True death. Final death. The kind that even chaos couldn't reverse. The chamber fell silent except for the crackle of cooling brass and the hum of the Slayer's armor systems. He stood in the center of the floor, still as a statue, his motion tracker already scanning for additional threats. Finding none, he began walking toward the chamber's far exit, where his sensors detected more warp signatures deeper in the hive. The Terminators remained frozen at the entrance, their transhuman brains struggling to process what they'd witnessed. A greater demon, the kind of entity that required entire companies of Space Marines to banish, had been killed, truly killed, in under 2 minutes by a lone warrior. "Report to the Warmaster," Cthonia said quietly, his voice steady despite the existential dread creeping into his thoughts. Tell him the anomaly is beyond anything we've encountered. Primarch tier combat effectiveness at minimum, possibly higher. Weapons and armor of unknown origin that appear specifically designed to kill demons. No warp presence, no corruption, no apparent limit to his aggression against chaos forces. On the vengeful spirit, Horus Lupercal watched the recording of the battle in silence. Around him, his command staff stood equally quiet, even Abaddon momentarily speechless. The Warmaster's enhanced mind ran through scenarios, probabilities, strategic implications. A warrior who could kill greater demons with contemptuous ease, who possessed technology beyond even the dark age of technology, who appeared to be conducting a one-man crusade against chaos with success that bordered on the miraculous, dangerous, unpredictable, potentially devastating to the entire rebellion if he decided the traitor legions were also enemies, but also fascinating, a challenge worthy of a Primarch's attention. "Abaddon," Horus said finally, his voice carrying the weight of decision. "Prepare my personal gunship. I'm going to Cthonia." His first captain turned, eyes widening behind his helmet. "My lord, the risk is acceptable." Horus stood from his throne, his massive frame dominating the strategium even among fellow Astartes. "This warrior has proven he can kill demons. I want to see if he can kill a Primarch." The Warmaster smiled, and it was the expression of someone who'd just found the most interesting game piece on the board. "Besides, if I can recruit him, turn his crusade toward Terra and the Corpse Emperor's loyalists, the war could end before another year passes." "And if he refuses?" Abaddon asked. Horus's smile widened, showing teeth that were just slightly too perfect, too sharp. "Then I'll do what I do best, my son. I'll break him, bind him, or bury him. One way or another, this anomaly will serve the true Imperium's cause." He strode from the strategium, his honor guard falling in around him. In 6 hours, he would be on Chthonia's surface. In 7, he would face this impossible warrior personally. The galaxy was about to witness a clash that transcended normal definitions of power, and Horus Lupercal had no intention of being anything less than victorious. The Doomslayer moved through the hive's lower levels like a force of nature, inexorable and unstoppable. Every chamber he entered became a killing floor, every corridor a gallery of the dead. Cultists died by the dozen, their prayers to Khorne cut short by argent-charged rounds or the brutal efficiency of the Slayer's close-quarters combat. Lesser demons manifested and were banished with contemptuous ease, their forms dispersed by weapons that treated the barrier between materium and immaterium as an irrelevant technicality. Behind him, the sons of Horus Terminators followed at a safe distance, documenting everything. Ctonia's Vox log recorded observations with mechanical precision. Hour 3 of observation. Subject has cleared 17 distinct zones, estimated kills, 480 cultists, 37 bloodletters, 12 fleshhounds, 3 demon princes of minor aspect, 0 casualties sustained. Ammunition expenditure appears impossible. Subject's weapons never run dry, suggesting either dimensional storage or matter-energy conversion beyond our understanding. The deeper they went, the more corrupted the environment became. Reality grew thin here, the warp bleeding through in ways that made even chaos-touched Astartes uncomfortable. Walls wept blood that spelled obscenities in languages that predated human speech. The air itself carried whispers of violence and promises of glory in Khorne's service. Normal humans would have gone mad within minutes. The Slayer's suit registered the environmental hazards, catalogued them, and dismissed them as irrelevant. His mind, forged in literal hell and hardened by eons of warfare against demonic forces, possessed a clarity that chaos couldn't touch. Where others saw temptation or horror, he saw only targets. He entered what had once been the Hive's primary geothermal plant, a massive cavern where magma flows had been tapped to power the settlement's industrial base. The cultists had converted it into something else, a birthing chamber where the warp intersected with reality strongly enough to allow permanent demonic manifestation. The magma had been corrupted, its natural orange glow replaced with a sick crimson that pulsed like a heartbeat. At the cavern's center, suspended above the corrupted magma by chains of brass and bone, hung a gateway. Not a simple warp rift, but an actual portal, stabilized through months of sacrifice and ritual. Through it, shapes moved, demons waiting to cross over, an invasion force that would have turned Cthonia into a permanent foothold for Khorne in the Materium. The Slayer's helmet display identified it immediately. Dimensional breach, large scale, threat level, maximum. Recommendation: destroy anchor points and destabilize portal. Simple enough. The cultists guarding the gateway numbered in the hundreds, the largest concentration the Slayer had encountered yet. They weren't the rabble from the upper levels. These were true believers, veterans who'd survived their own transformations, blessed by Khorne with enhanced strength and reduced pain response. Their armor was better maintained, their weapons properly cared for, and they stood in actual defensive formations rather than charging mindlessly. Their leader stood on a platform overlooking the portal, a figure who'd once been a Chaos Space Marine of the World Eater's Legion before some catastrophe had reduced him to leading cultists. His armor was ancient, Mark III iron pattern, the kind that hadn't been manufactured in 10,000 years. One arm had been replaced with a power claw that sparked with barely contained energy, and his helmet bore the leering faceplate of a berserker. "Brothers!" the fallen Astartes roared, his voice amplified by damaged vox speakers. "The blood god has sent us a gift, a warrior to test ourselves against. Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows." The cultists took up the chant, hundreds of voices merging into a deafening roar. "Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne." The Slayer answered by drawing his ballista, an energy weapon that fired precise argent bolts capable of punching through armor that would shrug off Lascanon fire. His first shot removed the World Eater's head from his shoulders mid-chant, the body toppling backward into the corrupted magma with a hiss of burning ceramite. Then he opened fire on the crowd. The battle that followed would have been called a slaughter by any objective observer, but to call it that would imply one-sided action. The cultists fought with desperate fury, their dedication to Khorne granting them courage beyond reason. They charged into fire that cut down dozens at a time, climbed over the bodies of their fallen comrades, threw themselves at the Slayer with weapons that ranged from improvised clubs to plasma weapons looted from dead Imperial Guard. The Slayer met them all with equal efficiency. He moved through their ranks like a scythe through wheat, his weapon selection adapting to each tactical situation, with the kind of fluidity that came from hundreds of years of constant combat. The ballista for long-range precision shots, the super shotgun for close quarters, the rocket launcher for grouped targets, the chain gun for sustained fire against charging masses. And when they got too close, when they breached his firing lines and entered melee range thinking they'd found an advantage, they learned what real close-quarters combat looked like. A cultist swung a chainsword at the Slayer's head. The Slayer caught the weapon mid-swing, ripped it from the cultist's hands, and drove it through 3 enemies in a single thrust. A mutant with 4 arms tried to grapple him from behind. The Slayer reversed his grip on his combat shotgun and fired backward without looking, the blast removing the mutant's center mass. 2 cultists with flamers thought they'd found an opening. The Slayer's shoulder-mounted flame belch activated, and they died screaming in fires hotter than what their own weapons could produce. Brother Typhon, watching from the cavern entrance with his fellow Terminators, found himself mentally cataloging techniques that even his Legion's combat instructors had never taught. "He doesn't fight like anything I've ever seen," the Terminator said quietly. "Not like an Astartes, not like Imperial Guard, not even like the Custodes. It's like watching violence given form and purpose." "It's beautiful," Brother Vorkos added, and there was genuine awe in his voice. "In a terrible, horrifying way, every movement serves the kill, every action flows into the next. There's no wasted energy, no showmanship, no rage, just perfect mechanical destruction." Carlton was already composing his report to Horus. The Warmaster needed to understand what he was about to face, not just power, but skill refined to an art form. This warrior had fought so many battles, killed so many enemies, that combat had become as natural to him as breathing. More natural, perhaps, since his armor likely handled that automatically. The last cultist fell with the Slayer's boot on his neck, a wet crunch ending his final prayer to Khorne. The cavern fell silent except for the crackling of fires and the wet sounds of the dying. 473 bodies lay scattered across the rockcrete and brass, and the Slayer stood among them without a scratch on his armor. He turned his attention to the portal. His suit's analysis systems studied the structure, identifying the anchor points, the power flow, the mathematical principles that held the gateway stable. Different physics than the hell portals he'd destroyed in his own dimension, but the underlying concepts were similar enough. Find the structural weaknesses. Apply overwhelming force at critical junctions. Watch it collapse. The Slayer raised his BFG 9000, the weapon charging with a distinctive whine that made even the Terminator's suits register radiation warnings. He fired once, the green plasma sphere striking the portal's primary anchor point and detonating with the force of a small nuclear device. The gateway screamed, an actual audible sound as dimensional mathematics collapsed and the warp was forcibly severed from the materium. Demons waiting on the other side to cross over were caught in the implosion, their forms shredded by forces that even chaos couldn't protect them from. The corrupted magma below began to cool, returning to its natural state as the warp's influence withdrew. Within 30 seconds, the portal was gone, leaving only scorched brass and the fading echoes of demonic screaming. Mission accomplished. The Slayer stood motionless for a moment, his suit running diagnostics and scanning for additional threats. Finding none in immediate proximity, he began walking toward the cavern exit, already planning his route to the next concentration of chaos corruption. His long-range sensors had detected 300 kilometers to the north. He never made it to the exit. Reality rippled, and suddenly the cavern was no longer empty except for corpses and Terminators. A new presence had arrived, one so powerful that even the Slayer's threat detection systems flared warnings. Horus Lupercal stood at the cavern entrance, his massive form backlit by the fires still burning above. The Warmaster had arrived ahead of schedule, teleporting directly from his orbiting flagship. He stood alone, having left even his honor guard behind for this confrontation. The Doomslayer and the Warmaster of Chaos faced each other across 50 meters of blood-soaked ground, and the galaxy held its breath. For 5 full seconds, neither warrior moved. The cavern's atmosphere grew heavy, reality itself seeming to strain under the weight of 2 beings who existed outside normal definitions of power. The Terminators at the entrance felt it, a pressure in their bones, a tightness in their chest that had nothing to do with armor seals or atmospheric conditions. This was the sensation of standing too close to colliding weather fronts, of being caught between forces that dwarfed individual existence. Horus broke the silence first, his voice carrying the resonant harmonics of his chaos ascension, but also something of the charisma that had once made him the Emperor's most beloved son. Remarkable. I've watched you work, warrior. 473 kills in 17 minutes. A greater demon destroyed permanently. A warp portal collapsed through pure firepower. You fight with the efficiency of a Primarch and the relentlessness of a machine. The Slayer's helmet regarded the Warmaster without response, his threat assessment systems working overtime. The figure before him registered as maximum danger, power readings that exceeded anything he'd encountered in this dimension so far, energy signatures that blended technological enhancement with something else, something that his sensors struggled to classify. But the underlying signature was familiar enough. Corruption, demonic taint, chaos. The Slayer's hand moved toward his weapon. "Wait," Horus commanded, and there was power in that word. The kind of authority that had once commanded millions of warriors across thousands of worlds. "I haven't come to fight, not immediately. I've come to talk." The Slayer's hand paused, though his combat readiness didn't decrease. His experience had taught him that demons lied, that corruption spoke honeyed words to mask poison, but his tactical systems also recognized opportunity. Information could be gathered, weaknesses could be observed, and if talking delayed combat, that was time to analyze his opponent. Horus took the pause as acceptance and stepped further into the cavern, his movements carrying the impossible grace of a being who'd been crafted for war by humanity's greatest genius. "You're not from our reality. That much is obvious. No warp presence, no soul echo in the immaterium, weapons and armor that operate on principles our greatest tech priests couldn't decipher. You're an anomaly, warrior, a piece that doesn't belong on the board." The Warmaster gestured at the carnage surrounding them, at the bodies of cultists and the scorched remains where demons had fallen. "But you clearly have purpose, direction. You hunt chaos with single-minded dedication, showing no mercy, accepting no surrender, offering no quarter. You fight like someone who's been doing this for a very, very long time." Still, the Slayer remained silent, but his helmet tracked Horus's every movement, analyzing gait, identifying weapon systems, calculating optimal engagement strategies. The Warmaster carried a massive power maul, Worldbreaker, his suit's database finally identified after cross-referencing energy signatures against known threats. Lightning claws, on his other hand, Terminator armor that had been warped by Chaos's touch into something between technology and living metal. Horus noticed the analysis, smiled slightly. "Yes, study me, learn what you face. I'm Horus Lupercal, Warmaster of the Imperium, first among the Emperor's Primarchs, or I was, before I opened my eyes to larger truths." He spread his arms, presenting himself openly. "I am what happens when the Emperor's greatest creation realizes his father's vision was built on lies and hypocrisy. I am the chosen of the Chaos Gods, granted powers beyond anything the Corpse Emperor could bestow." The temperature in the cavern dropped several degrees as warp energy manifested around Horus, not threatening but demonstrative. Reality bent slightly, shadows lengthening, colors shifting in ways that hurt to perceive. "I can see you're unimpressed. Good. I appreciate a warrior who trusts actions over words." Horus began to pace, his movements casual, despite the lethal tension filling the space. "Here's what I know about you. You've killed hundreds in the hours since you arrived, all of them aligned with chaos in some capacity, all of them deserving of death by any reasonable metric. Even my father would have exterminated those cultists. You're conducting a crusade, warrior, a one-man war against corruption itself." The Warmaster stopped pacing, fixed the Slayer with eyes that held too much intelligence, too much calculation. "But do you understand the galaxy you found yourself in? Do you comprehend the scope of what you're fighting? Chaos isn't an invasion force that can be repelled, isn't an enemy army that can be defeated through superior firepower. Chaos is fundamental to this reality, born from sentient emotion itself, sustained by every feeling of rage or despair or ambition or desire felt by thinking beings across the galaxy. Horus's voice grew more intense, more passionate, carrying echoes of the general who'd inspired billions to follow him across the stars. You can kill 1,000,000 demons, warrior, and 1,000,000 more will spawn from humanity's suffering. You can destroy 1,000 portals, and 1,000 more will open wherever emotion runs hot enough. You're fighting an endless war against an infinite enemy, and even your impressive capabilities have limits. The Slayer's response was to draw his super shotgun, the weapon materializing in his hands with practiced ease. The message was clear. He'd fought endless wars before, and that had never stopped him. Horus laughed, and it was genuine amusement mixed with respect. Of course, you've heard this before, haven't you? Some demon lord or corrupted priest telling you the fight was hopeless, that you should surrender or join them or accept the inevitable. And every time, you've answered with violence. The Warmaster's expression grew serious. But I'm not offering you corruption, warrior. I'm offering you alliance. That got a reaction. The Slayer's head tilted slightly, the first acknowledgement that he was actually listening to Horus's words, rather than simply waiting for an opening to attack. The Imperium of Man, Horus continued, was built by my father, the Emperor of mankind, through a campaign of genocide and enforced unity. He conquered Terra, then the solar system, then sent out his armies, my brothers and me, to bring the entire galaxy under his rule, all in the name of protecting humanity, of course, of securing mankind's future. The Warmaster's voice dripped with bitterness now. But it was a lie. Every world we burned, every species we exterminated, every culture we destroyed, all justified by his grand vision. And when some of us began to question, to see the hypocrisy in building an empire for humanity's benefit on mountains of human corpses, he called us traitors. When we sought to forge our own path, he declared us corrupted. Horus spread his hands, indicating himself, the cavern, the wider galaxy. So yes, I made bargains with powers he called forbidden. Yes, I accepted strength from the warp's entities to oppose his tyranny. But my goal remains unchanged from the Great Crusade's beginning. I fight for humanity's right to choose its own destiny, free from a tyrant's vision. The Slayer's super shotgun remained leveled at Horus, unwavering. His experience with demonic rhetoric was extensive enough to recognize the pattern. Paint yourself as reasonable, cast your opponent as the real villain, offer partnership while downplaying your own atrocities. He'd heard variations of this speech from hell priests and demon lords, from corrupted humans and fallen angels. The details changed, but the core manipulation remained constant. Horus saw the disbelief, sighed with what might have been genuine disappointment. You don't trust me, smart, but consider this, warrior. You've killed hundreds of my followers today, destroyed resources I'd invested months in gathering, banished demons I'd spent considerable effort manifesting. By any reasonable measure, we should be enemies. The Warmaster took a step forward, and the air grew heavier with barely leashed power. Yet I'm here, talking, offering alliance instead of attacking. Why? Because I recognize value when I see it. A warrior who can permanently kill greater demons, who fights chaos without being corrupted, who possesses technology beyond anything in this galaxy. You're a weapon aimed at my enemies by sheer chance of your arrival. Another step closer. The Terminators at the entrance tensed, knowing they were witnessing the moment before the storm. Point yourself at Terra instead of my forces, warrior. Help me tear down the Emperor's tyranny, and I'll give you targets worth your attention. The Corpse Emperor himself sits on a throne of gold, sustained by the daily sacrifice of 10,000 psychers. He's the greatest demon summoner in galactic history, his very existence feeding the chaos gods he claims to oppose. Kill him, and you'll have struck a blow against chaos that actually matters. The Slayer's finger moved to his trigger. Horus smiled, and it was the smile of someone who'd expected this response. No? Then let me make one final offer. Prove you're better than me. Right here, right now. Fight me, warrior. Show me that your crusade has the strength to matter in this galaxy. The Warmaster raised Worldbreaker, lightning crackling along its length. And if you can't defeat one Primarch, one champion of chaos, then what hope do you have against the billions who serve the dark gods? What chance do you have against the chaos gods themselves? The cavern exploded into violence. The Slayer fired first, both barrels of his super shotgun unleashing argent-charged buckshot at point-blank range. The kind of attack that had obliterated greater demons, that had punched through armor rated to withstand antimatter weapons. Horus moved faster than something his size had any right to, twisting his massive frame sideways, so the majority of the blast screamed past him. 3 pellets struck his Terminator plate and detonated, scoring deep furrows in the blessed ceramite, but failing to penetrate. The Warmaster's response was immediate and brutal. Worldbreaker swept in a horizontal arc that would have pulverized a Lehman Russ battle tank. The Slayer's suit thrusters fired, launching him backward in a controlled jump that put 10 meters between them. He landed in a combat roll, came up already weapon switching, the ballista materializing in place of the shotgun. He fired 3 precision shots in rapid succession, each targeting the weak points his armor's analysis systems had identified. Gorget seals, hip joints, the slight gap between chest plate and helmet. Horus's lightning claws came up, and impossibly, unbelievably, the Primarch deflected all 3 argent bolts with precise swipes of his weapons. The energy splashed against the cavern walls, blowing chunks of rockcrete into molten slag. "Impressive," Horus said, and he sounded genuinely pleased. "You fight like you've studied Primarch combat doctrine, but studying and experiencing are different things entirely." The Warmaster charged, crossing 15 meters in the time it took a normal human to blink. He was massive, easily twice the Slayer's size, but moved with the fluid grace of a master duelist. Worldbreaker descended in an overhead smash that cracked the rockcrete floor where the Slayer had been standing a microsecond before. The shockwave from the impact alone would have shattered bones, but the Slayer had already repositioned, his superior mobility allowing him to stay ahead of Horus's overwhelming strength. The rocket launcher came next, firing a salvo of 6 missiles that should have turned the Warmaster into a crater. Horus weathered the detonations, his Terminator armor's void shields flaring to life and absorbing the majority of the damage. When the smoke cleared, he was still standing, his armor scorched but intact, and he was smiling. "You're testing me," Horus observed, batting away another volley with his lightning claws. "Learning my capabilities, analyzing my defenses. Good tactics against an unknown opponent, but I'm doing the same to you, warrior." The Primarch's eyes flashed with warp fire, and suddenly he wasn't just strong and fast. He was everywhere. Multiple afterimages appeared around him, each moving independently, each attacking from different angles. Psychic illusion combined with superhuman speed, creating a technique that had confounded even other Primarchs during training bouts. The Slayer's helmet display lit up with threat warnings, his targeting systems struggling to identify which Horus was real. He made a split-second decision, activated his flame belch, and flooded the entire area with superheated combustion. The heat was so intense, it turned sand to glass, so concentrated that even Horus's Terminator armor registered warnings. The illusions vanished, leaving only the real Warmaster, his armor glowing red-hot in places. But he was laughing, actually laughing, as he pressed forward through flames that would have cremated a squad of Astartes. "Yes, this is what I wanted. A real challenge, a real fight." Worldbreaker caught the Slayer a glancing blow on his left shoulder, And for the first time since arriving in this dimension, he felt pain. Real pain. The kind that cut through his armor's analgesic systems and shock absorption. The impact sent him tumbling across the cavern floor, servos screaming in protest, armor integrity warnings flashing across his HUD. He rolled to his feet, assessed the damage, 30% functionality loss in his left arm, structural compromises in 3 armor sections, shield generator offline, and recalculated his tactical approach. The entity he faced was legitimately dangerous, possessing both immense physical power and combat experience that spanned centuries. Different from the demons he'd fought, but no less lethal, the Slayer deployed his equipment launcher, sending a barrage of frag grenades not at Horus, but at the cavern ceiling above him. The explosions brought down tons of rock and corroded metal in a localized cave-in that would have buried a land raider. Horus burst through it like it was tissue paper, fragments of stone bouncing off his armor, and his grin had become something fierce and almost joyous. "You fight smart, not just strong. I can see why you've survived so long." The Warmaster was genuinely enjoying himself, the way a master craftsman enjoys working with quality materials. "But raw tactics won't be enough." Horus raised his free hand, and warp lightning erupted from his fingertips. Not the crude energy attacks of chaos sorcerers, but refined psychic power channeled through a Primarch's will and backed by the Chaos God's blessings. The lightning struck the Slayer head-on, and his armor's systems went haywire. Electronics sparked, power fluctuated, his HUD briefly fritzing into static. But the Praetor's suit had been designed to operate in hell itself, in environments saturated with demonic energy that operated on similar principles to this galaxy's warp. It adapted, rerouted power, re-established primary functions within seconds. The Slayer emerged from the lightning storm, smoking but functional, and his response was to draw a weapon he'd been holding in reserve, the BFG 9000. Horus's eyes widened fractionally as his psychic senses registered the weapon's power output. "What in the warp?" the Slayer fired. The green plasma sphere crossed the distance between them in a fraction of a second, its argent energy core radiating the kind of power that even a Primarch had to respect. Horus threw up every defense he possessed: void shields, psychic barriers, the Chaos God's own blessings woven into his armor, and it wasn't enough. The BFG blast struck him dead center and detonated. The explosion lit up the entire cavern, turned shadows into stark relief, cracked support pillars, and sent the observing Terminators scrambling for cover. When the light faded, Horus Lupercal stood in a crater 3 meters deep, his Terminator armor breached in a dozen places, ichor blood dripping from wounds that were already beginning to close with unnatural speed. The Warmaster looked down at himself, at the damage that should have killed him, at wounds that would have ended any other being short of a greater demon or another Primarch. When he looked back up at the Slayer, his expression had changed. The joy was still there, but now mixed with something else. Genuine respect, perhaps even a hint of concern. "That," Horus said slowly, his voice carrying less of its earlier confidence, "would have killed me if I hadn't been blessed by all 4. Do you understand what that means, warrior? Your weapons don't just harm demons. They can end Primarchs. End beings crafted by the greatest genius humanity has ever produced and enhanced by gods." He stepped out of the crater, his movements now carrying a predatory wariness that hadn't been there before. "I came here thinking I'd test you, measure you, perhaps recruit or break you. But you're not a tool to be wielded or an obstacle to be overcome. You're a legitimate threat." The Slayer's response was to reload the BFG, the weapon's charging cycle beginning again with its characteristic whine. The message was clear. Talking time was over. Horus laughed, but there was less humor in it now and more challenge. "Very well. No more testing. No more holding back. You want to see what a Primarch at full power can do?" The air around him began to shimmer, reality itself bending as he called upon the full extent of his chaos-granted abilities. His armor began to shift, growing spikes and bladed edges, his form becoming more demonic, less human. Then let me show you why the Chaos Gods chose me to lead their armies. The cavern itself seemed to scream as two titans prepared to unleash their full destructive potential. The Terminators had already begun retreating, knowing that what was about to happen would make their previous observations look like a sparring match. Brother Calton's last Vox transmission before fleeing was simple. All forces withdraw to minimum safe distance. The Warmaster and the Anomaly are about to tear the planet apart. On the vengeful spirit, Ezekiel Abaddon watched the sensor readings spike off the charts and made a decision that would have been unthinkable mere hours ago. Prepare for immediate extraction of the Warmaster. If this goes wrong, if he falls, we need to be ready to recover him before... Before what? One of the bridge officers dared to ask. Abaddon's jaw clenched. Before that warrior moves on to his next target. And make no mistake, if Horus falls, we're next on his list. In the cavern, surrounded by fire and ruin, two beings who represented the pinnacle of their respective realities prepared to discover which reality's rules would prove supreme. Horus Lupercal, fully ascended into his chaos-enhanced form, was a sight that would have broken mortal minds. His armor had fused with his flesh, his body wreathed in warp fire that flickered between red, blue, purple, and green, each color representing one of the Four's blessings. His eyes glowed with an inner light that was equal parts intelligence and madness, and when he moved, reality left after images, the laws of physics struggling to keep pace with something that existed partially outside normal space-time. "I am the Warmaster," Horus roared, his voice carrying harmonics that existed in dimensions the human ear wasn't designed to process. "I am the chosen of chaos undivided. I am the Imperium's true master and Terra's rightful ruler. I am Horus Lupercal, and I do not fall." The Doomslayer's response was characteristically simple. He activated his berserk power-up. The change was immediate and terrifying. His already formidable combat capabilities multiplied exponentially, his reaction times dropping to near precognitive levels, his strength amplified beyond anything his armor's servos normally provided. The Praetor suit's systems strained to contain and channel the enhancement, power readings spiking to levels that made his damaged components scream in protest. But they held because they'd been forged to hold, designed to handle a warrior who'd made a career of fighting impossible battles. When they collided this time, the shockwave shattered every remaining window in the hive for 3 levels above them. Horus swung Worldbreaker with enough force to demolish fortifications, but the Slayer was no longer where the blow landed. He'd launched himself into the air using his jump jets, inverted mid-flight, and came down with a double-fisted strike that carried the full momentum of his descent, multiplied by his berserk-enhanced strength. The impact drove Horus to one knee, cracking the rockcrete beneath him in a spiderweb pattern that spread for 20 meters. The Warmaster's lightning claws lashed out, 5 blades each capable of cutting through tank armor, and this time they found purchase. The claws carved deep furrows across the Slayer's chestplate, actually breaching the Praetor armor and drawing blood for the first time since his arrival in this dimension. Warning klaxons screamed in the Slayer's helmet, medical systems automatically sealing the wounds and administering combat stimulants. Pain, real pain. The kind he hadn't felt since his last battle with the Dark Lord himself. Excellent. The Slayer grabbed Horus's wrist, the one holding Worldbreaker, and wrenched with strength that shouldn't have existed in a frame his size. Horus felt his transhuman bones creak, felt pressure that not even his Primarch physiology could completely ignore. Before the Warmaster could respond, the Slayer had drawn his crucible with his free hand and driven it into Horus's shoulder joint, one of the few weak points in Terminator armor. Argent energy flooded into the wound, burning with a purity that was anathema to chaos corruption. Horus screamed, not in pain alone, but in genuine shock as he felt the Chaos God's blessings recoil from the weapon's touch. The energy was trying to unmake him, to separate what he'd become from what he'd been, and it took every ounce of his will, backed by the Four's power, to prevent complete dissolution. He released Worldbreaker, letting the maul fall, and grabbed the Slayer with both hands. His strength was immense, multiplied by desperation and the warp's power, and he lifted the smaller warrior off the ground. "You cannot kill what is already beyond death," Horus snarled, his voice distorted by pain and rage. "I have been promised eternity by the dark gods themselves." The Slayer's helmet was inches from Horus's face, close enough that the Warmaster could see his own reflection in the visor, close enough to see nothing behind that visor, no eyes, no humanity, just an absence where a person should be. And in that moment, Horus Lupercal understood what he was fighting. This wasn't a man anymore, if it had ever been one. This was a weapon given form, purpose distilled into armor and flesh, vengeance made manifest. The warrior didn't fight for glory or survival or ideology. He fought because that's what he was, at the most fundamental level. Fighting chaos wasn't his mission, it was his existence. The realization might have terrified a lesser being. Horus hurled the Slayer across the cavern with enough force to embed him 3 feet deep into the far wall. Before the Slayer could extract himself, the Warmaster raised both hands and unleashed the full extent of his psychic might. Warp lightning, telekinetic force, reality-bending power that drew directly from the Chaos Gods themselves. All of it focused on one target with the kind of precision that only a Primarch could manage. The wall exploded, tons of rock and metal fragmenting under the psychic assault. The Slayer emerged from the destruction already moving, his armor's shield regenerated and absorbing the worst of the attacks. His equipment launcher deployed ice bombs, super-cooled projectiles that flash-froze everything they touched to temperatures approaching absolute zero. Horus's warp fire shield protected him, but the temperature differential created stress fractures in his armor, weakening already compromised sections. The Slayer pressed his advantage, closing the distance in a burst of thruster-assisted speed and delivering a devastating combination. Super shotgun to the chest, ballista shot to the head, and a finishing blow with the crucible aimed at Horus's exposed neck. The Warmaster caught the blade between his lightning claws, the energy weapon held inches from his throat by sheer force of will and transhuman strength. They strained against each other, Slayer pushing with berserk-enhanced might, Horus holding with chaos-blessed power, and the air between them crackled with competing energies. "Why?" Horus asked through gritted teeth, genuine curiosity mixing with the strain of combat. "Why do you fight? What drives you? Revenge? Duty? Programming? What makes you risk everything, fight endlessly, never surrender or compromise?" The Slayer's response came not in words, but in action. He released the crucible, letting Horus's defensive posture work against him, and in the split second of the Warmaster's surprise, delivered an uppercut with his free hand that caught Horus under the chin. The blow lifted the Primarch off his feet, and before he could recover, the Slayer had drawn his plasma rifle and fired a sustained burst directly into Horus's damaged chest plate. The argent plasma burned with temperatures that exceeded those found in stellar cores, with energy that was specifically calibrated to harm entities from beyond normal reality. Horus's armor, already compromised by the BFG blast, finally gave way. The plasma carved through corrupted ceramite, through the warp-touched flesh beneath, and found the core of what Horus had become. The Warmaster's scream echoed through both the materium and the immaterium. On the vengeful spirit, psychers collapsed with blood streaming from their eyes. Across Chthonia's surface, demons flickered and wavered as their patron's champion faltered. In the warp itself, The four who'd chosen Horus as their vessel felt the psychic feedback and recoiled. But Horus Lupercal hadn't conquered half the galaxy by being easy to kill. Even as the plasma burned him from within, he grabbed the Slayer's rifle and crushed it with his bare hands. The weapon exploded, showering both combatants with fragments and residual energy. Horus followed up with a headbutt that would have shattered starship bulkheads, his reinforced skull impacting the Slayer's helmet with a sound like a thunderclap. The Slayer's visor cracked, hairline fractures spreading across the transparent material. His audio processors cut out momentarily, overwhelmed by the impact, and his heads-up display flickered. But his combat instincts, honed across literally hundreds of years of warfare, didn't need electronic assistance. He kneed Horus in his plasma-burned chest, targeting the wound, maximizing damage. The Warmaster's grip loosened, and the Slayer twisted free, drawing his combat shotgun and firing at point-blank range into the same wounded area. The shells weren't argent-charged like his super shotgun, but at this range, against compromised armor, they didn't need to be. Horus staggered backward, his regeneration struggling to keep pace with the accumulated damage. His chaos blessings were fighting to repair him, knitting flesh and sealing wounds. But the argent energy from the Slayer's weapons was interfering, preventing clean healing, leaving corrupted tissue and destabilized cellular structure. For the first time since his ascension, since his bargain with the dark gods, Horus Lupercal felt something he hadn't experienced in years: the possibility of death, real death, the kind that chaos couldn't reverse. Impossible, he breathed, looking down at his ruined armor, at the wounds that wouldn't close properly. I am the Warmaster. The Slayer ejected his spent magazine and reloaded with mechanical precision, his cracked visor reflecting the warp fire still flickering around Horus's damaged form. He raised his weapon, aimed steady despite his own injuries, and prepared to end this. Then reality screamed, and the Chaos Gods themselves intervened. The intervention wasn't subtle. Reality didn't just bend, it shattered like glass struck by a hammer, and through the cracks poured power that made the materium itself recoil in horror. The four Chaos Gods, each a Gestalt consciousness formed from trillions of souls' emotions across millions of years, turned their collective attention to a single point in space-time. This cavern, this battle, this moment where their chosen champion teetered on the edge of permanent death. Khorne's rage manifested first, a tide of blood-red energy that erupted from the ground itself. The blood god would not see his entertainment ended prematurely, would not allow a warrior of such magnificent potential to be wasted on protecting a failed champion. Brass armor materialized around Horus, reinforcing his damaged plate, and his wounds began closing with unnatural speed as Khorne's blessing flooded his system. Tzeentch followed, the architect of fate, weaving probabilities and possibilities around the Warmaster. Multiple futures overlapped, creating temporal echoes where Horus existed in several states simultaneously, wounded and healed, standing and fallen, alive and dead. The Slayer's targeting systems went haywire, trying to lock onto a target that occupied multiple positions in space-time at once. Nurgle's gift came next, a wave of pestilent vitality that made death itself irrelevant. Wounds that should have been fatal became merely painful. Damage that should have crippled became manageable. The Grandfather's blessing taught Horus's body to embrace corruption rather than fight it, to accept the argent burns and make them part of his new form rather than trying to heal them away. Finally, Slaanesh added the Dark Prince's own contribution, supernatural grace and speed that turned Horus's movements into a deadly dance. Pain became pleasure, exhaustion became exhilaration, and the Warmaster's flagging will was reinforced by sensations beyond mortal comprehension. The Doomslayer watched this transformation with his typical lack of emotion, but his suit's sensors registered what was happening and updated his threat assessment accordingly. unprecedented levels of extra-dimensional energy manipulation, direct intervention by entities that existed beyond normal space-time, reality manipulation on a scale that would require antimatter-level ordnance to counter. He'd fought worse. The reinforced Horus rose to his feet, his form now a horrifying amalgamation of the Four's gifts. His armor was part brass, part rotting flesh, part crystalline mutation, part sensuous curves that hurt to look at directly. He radiated power on a level that transcended anything he'd shown before, the Chaos Gods themselves maintaining a direct connection, feeding him their strength. "You see," Horus's voice came from multiple directions at once, harmonizing in ways that violated auditory physics. "You cannot win, warrior. The dark gods have invested too much in me, in my rebellion, in my destiny. Even if you destroy this body, they'll resurrect me. Even if you burn away my soul, they'll remake it. I am eternal, because they will it so." The Slayer's response was to activate his final trump card, the weapon he'd been holding in reserve for the largest threats his reality could produce: the Unmaker. The weapon materialized in his hands, a device that looked almost organic, all curved surfaces and pulsing energy conduits. It hummed with power that made even the Chaos God's intervention seem pale by comparison, not because it was necessarily stronger, but because it operated on principles that were fundamentally opposed to their existence. The Unmaker was designed to unmake, to render impossible what had already been manifested, to cause retroactive existence failure in its targets. He aimed and fired, and reality itself screamed in protest. Beams of pure argent energy, dozens of them, lanced out in a cone of destruction that would have vaporized a city block. Each beam targeted a different aspect of Horus's being: physical, psychic, spiritual, temporal. The weapon wasn't trying to kill the Warmaster. It was trying to erase him from existence across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Horus raised his hands, and the power of 4 flowed through him in quantities that would have destroyed a lesser vessel. The beams struck his hastily erected barriers, and the cavern became ground zero for a conflict between fundamental forces: creation versus uncreation, chaos versus negation, gods versus a weapon designed to kill them. The explosion was visible from orbit. On the vengeful spirit, every sensor array overloaded simultaneously. Vox systems shrieked with interference. Navigator chambers had to be emergency sealed as their occupants convulsed from the psychic shockwave. Ezekiel Abaddon gripped his command throne's armrests hard enough to crack the metal, watching the readouts that showed a blast radius expanding to encompass the entire hive and beyond. "Get ready to teleport the Warmaster out," he roared over the chaos. "Now, before—" The signal from Horus's armor transponder went dark. For 5 eternal seconds, there was nothing. No readings, no vox, no psychic echo. Silence from a point in space that had moments before contained enough power to crack a world. The bridge of the vengeful spirit fell silent, every warrior present contemplating the impossible, that their Primarch, their Warmaster, their Gene Father, might have fallen. Then Horus's signal flickered back to life, weak but present. In the ruins of what had been a cavern and was now a crater 300 meters wide and 50 deep, 2 figures stirred. Horus Lupercal lay in the center, his armor shattered beyond recognition, his body reverting to its base Primarch form as the Chaos God's direct intervention was forced to withdraw. The energy required to maintain that level of manifestation in the materium had proven too costly even for them, especially against a weapon specifically designed to sever such connections. But he lived, barely. His chest rose and fell with labored breaths, one eye open and staring at the ash-choked sky. Primarch physiology, even without chaos enhancement, was almost impossible to kill permanently, without specialized weapons or overwhelming force. And while the Unmaker qualified as specialized, the Chaos God's intervention had bought just enough time to prevent Horus's complete destruction. 30 meters away, the Doomslayer pulled himself from the rubble. His Praetor armor was in critical condition, multiple breaches, primary power at 15%, major systems offline or damaged beyond field repair. His Berserk enhancement had expired, leaving him running on backup reserves and sheer bloody-minded determination. The Unmaker had consumed enormous amounts of power, more than his suit could sustain without significant recovery time. For the first time since entering this dimension, the Doomslayer was operating at a genuine disadvantage. He tried to stand, made it halfway, and his damaged leg servos gave out. He caught himself on one knee, armor grinding in protest. His motion tracker showed Horus's position, registered the Warmaster's weakened state, calculated the distance and the probability of reaching him before reinforcements arrived. 12%. Unacceptable odds, especially in his current condition. The Slayer's tactical systems ran through options with mechanical efficiency. Retreat was viable. His armor still had enough power for short-range teleportation, could extract him to a safe distance where he could repair and rearm. But that meant leaving Horus alive, letting a proven threat escape to regenerate and grow stronger. His hand moved toward his equipment belt, toward the emergency teleporter, even as every instinct screamed at him to finish the fight regardless of cost. Then Horus laughed, a wet, pained sound, but genuine nonetheless. "Draw," the Warmaster managed, blood bubbling from his lips. After all that, after everything, a draw. How embarrassing for both of us. The Slayer's hand paused on his teleporter. His cracked visor turned toward Horus, and though neither could see the other's face clearly through damaged armor and failing light, a moment of understanding passed between them. They had both fought to the absolute limit, both pushed beyond what should have been survivable, both proven their power, and both proven that the other couldn't be easily defeated. Warriors of their caliber recognized such moments, the point where continuing meant mutual destruction, where pride had to yield to tactical reality. "Go," Horus said quietly, his voice carrying none of its earlier bravado. "Escape while you can. Recover, because next time," he managed a bloody smile, "next time, I'll be ready for your tricks, and you'll have learned mine." The Slayer considered for exactly 2 seconds, then activated his teleporter. Argent energy enveloped him, and he vanished in a flash of blue-white light, extracted to coordinates his armor had automatically selected, far enough to be safe, close enough to remain on Cthonia if needed. Horus lay alone in the crater, staring at the sky, and started laughing again, despite the pain. A warrior who fights like that, who survives against the Chaos God's intervention, who retreats when tactical advantage demands it. He closed his eyes, already feeling his son's teleportation lock beginning to triangulate his position. Father would have loved him, would have made him a Primarch if he could. The thought sobered him quickly. The Emperor would have loved this warrior, and that made him more dangerous than Horus had initially calculated, not because he might ally with terror, but because he represented everything the Imperium could have been if the Emperor's vision hadn't been built on lies and tyranny. A warrior incorruptible, powerful, and absolutely dedicated to fighting chaos. The Emperor's dream made manifest, arriving too late to save a doomed crusade. Or perhaps, Horus thought, as teleportation energy began to surround him, right on time to make the war even more interesting. 300 kilometers from the crater, in the ruins of an abandoned ore processing facility, the Doomslayer materialized in a flash of dissipating argent energy. His armor's emergency systems had selected the location based on tactical criteria: defensible position, limited access points, sufficient cover for repairs, and most importantly, no immediate threats detected within scanning range. He took 3 steps forward and collapsed. The Praetor suit's automated systems took over, deploying support struts that locked his limbs in place and prevented further damage. Medical subsystems injected combat stimulants and coagulants directly into his bloodstream, addressing the wounds Horus's lightning claws had opened. Armor repair protocols initiated, nanomachines beginning the painstaking process of resealing breaches and restoring structural integrity. But even the most advanced technology had limits. His suit estimated 72 hours minimum for critical repairs, possibly twice that for full combat readiness. The Unmaker had drained power reserves that would take days to replenish. Multiple weapon systems were offline or damaged. His shield generator needed complete replacement, not just repair. For the first time since arriving in this dimension, the Doomslayer was truly vulnerable. His helmet's cracked visor displayed a stream of damage reports and system warnings, but he ignored them, focusing instead on what his armor had recorded during the battle. Combat footage played on his HUD, Horus's movements, his techniques, the way reality had bent when the Chaos gods intervened. The Slayer analyzed every frame with the cold efficiency of someone who'd learned that survival depended on learning from every encounter. The Warmaster was powerful, more powerful than any single opponent he'd faced in recent memory, perhaps even rivaling the Dark Lord in raw capability. But more concerning was the intervention, the way those entities had reached through reality itself to protect their champion. That suggested resources and backup that exceeded what he typically dealt with. His suit's long-range sensors, still functional despite the damage, painted a picture of the wider galaxy that was simultaneously familiar and alien. Corruption everywhere, planets, systems, entire sectors tainted by the same warp energy that had empowered Horus. But also resistance, massive military forces fighting against the corruption with determination, if not always success. A civil war, his tactical database concluded. The analysis matched patterns he'd seen before in his own dimension. Humanity divided, some corrupted by demonic influence, others fighting to remain pure. The scale was different, magnitudes larger, but the fundamental dynamics were recognizable, which meant his mission hadn't changed. Find chaos, kill chaos, repeat until there was no more chaos to kill. Simple, direct, exactly what he'd been doing for longer than civilizations existed. His armor pinged, motion detected, multiple contacts approaching from 3 different vectors. The Slayer's hand moved to his super shotgun before his tactical systems identified the signatures. Human, heavily armored, but not corrupted. No warp taint, no demonic influence, just soldiers moving with professional caution toward his position. The sons of Horus Terminators who'd been observing him? No. These signatures were different. Lighter armor, different energy profiles. Not chaos, but not necessarily friendly either. The lead contact entered his firing line, and the Slayer's threat assessment systems provided identification. Adeptus Astartes, Loyalist designation, armor pattern suggesting Ultramarines or successor chapter. 3 warriors total, all bearing the kind of battle damage that suggested recent heavy combat. The lead Space Marine, his armor marked him as a sergeant, raised one hand in a gesture of peace, his bolter held low but ready. Identify yourself, warrior. We detected the explosion, came to investigate. Are you... He paused, taking in the Slayer's exotic armor, the obvious alien technology, the complete lack of Imperial iconography. Are you friend or foe to the Imperium of Man? The Slayer said nothing, his weapon tracking the sergeant but not yet firing. His experience suggested that silence often revealed more about potential threats than conversation, how they reacted to uncertainty, what assumptions they made, how quickly they escalated to violence. The sergeant tried again, his voice careful. We're hunting traitor forces in this sector. Horus's rebellion has torn the galaxy apart, set brother against brother. We fight for the Emperor, for humanity's survival against chaos corruption. You've clearly been in combat, against the traitors, judging by the warp burn on your armor. That makes us potential allies. Still, the Slayer remained silent, though his suit's universal translator was parsing the language, updating its Gothic database, preparing communication protocols in case he decided verbal interaction was tactically advantageous. One of the other Astartes, this one with tactical designation markings, shifted his weight slightly. Not aggressive, just uncomfortable. Sergeant, his armor. I've never seen anything like it. Not Imperial, not Xenos, not Chaos. Where did he come from? Good question, brother. The sergeant took a cautious step forward, keeping his movements slow and visible. Warrior, I am Sergeant Ventress of the Ultramarines 4th Company. We mean you no harm, if you mean none to us. But we need to understand what happened here, what you are, and whose side you're on in the coming war. The Slayer's suit finished its preliminary assessment. Loyalist forces, genuinely opposed to Chaos, operating under significant resource constraints and tactical disadvantage. Allied with them temporarily would provide intelligence on this dimension's conflicts, potential resupply opportunities, and information on high-value Chaos targets. But it would also draw attention, create obligations, potentially limit his operational freedom. He'd always worked alone, had learned through hard experience that allies were liabilities, that caring about anyone or anything beyond the mission opened vulnerabilities that Daemons would exploit. He was still considering when his long-range sensors detected new contacts, larger signatures moving fast, energy profiles matching the corrupted Astartes who'd observed him fighting Horus. Sons of Horus, probably, coming to investigate the battle site and potentially hunting for survivors. 12 contacts, all in Terminator armor, moving in coordinated search patterns. They'd reach this facility in approximately 8 minutes. The tactical situation clarified instantly. Fight alone against 12 Terminators while his armor was compromised, or accept temporary alliance with warriors who could provide fire support and potentially facilitate escape. The choice was obvious to anyone who'd survived as long as he had through ruthless pragmatism. The Slayer lowered his super shotgun slightly, not holstering it but removing it from active threat posture, and gave a single, curt nod. Sergeant Ventress released a breath he'd been holding. Emperor be praised. We have incoming traitors, multiple contacts, heavy armor. This facility won't hold against a sustained assault, and we're running low on ammunition after our last engagement. Can you fight? The Slayer checked his armor's status. Primary weapons, functional at reduced capacity. Shield generator offline but not critical. Mobility at 60%. Power reserves sufficient for approximately 30 minutes of combat before emergency protocols engaged. He could fight. Whether he could win against those odds in his current state was less certain. He nodded again, this time accompanied by a gesture toward his armor's damage, communicating his limitations without words. Understood. Wounded but operational. Ventress switched to Vox, addressing his battle brothers. Tactical Marcellus set up overlapping fire lanes. Brother Tiberius, find us an exit route, preferably something that doesn't require us to fight through the traitors. We buy time for... He glanced at the Slayer, realized he didn't have a name to use. For our new ally to recover enough for extraction. The facility's ancient architecture suddenly seemed much smaller, the walls thinner, as the Ultramarines moved into defensive positions with practiced efficiency. These were veterans, the Slayer recognized, warriors who'd fought enough battles to know when tactical withdrawal was wisdom rather than cowardice. His motion tracker showed the Sons of Horus contacts getting closer, 4 minutes out now and closing. The Slayer found a position with good sight lines and acceptable cover, braced himself against the wall to compensate for his damaged servos, and chambered a round in his super shotgun. Sergeant Ventress took position beside him, bolter raised. Whatever you are, wherever you came from, thank you for standing with us. He paused, then added quietly, If we survive this, you'll want to avoid Imperial authorities. They'll ask questions about your origins that I suspect you can't or won't answer. But there are places, people who might understand better, who might help. The Slayer didn't respond, his attention focused on his motion tracker. 3 minutes. The Sons of Horus were spreading out, surrounding the facility in classic search and destroy formation. Professional, coordinated, experienced. This was going to hurt. The Sons of Horus Terminators arrived with the kind of tactical precision that spoke to centuries of warfare. They didn't charge blindly or announce their presence. They simply materialized from the ash-choked darkness, their midnight blue armor nearly invisible until they were already in firing positions. Brother Sergeant Culton, who'd observed the Slayer's earlier rampage, led the assault with cold professionalism. "Contacts confirmed," Culton voxed to his squad. 3 Loyalists, ultramarine markings, plus the anomaly, heavily damaged. Terminate with extreme prejudice. The Warmaster wants the anomaly captured alive if possible, dead if necessary. The first indication of attack came when a crack missile streaked through the facility's rusted entryway, targeting the support column Sergeant Ventress was using for cover. The ultramarine moved on instinct, rolling away as the column exploded in a shower of rockcrete and twisted rebar. Return fire came immediately. Bolter rounds from tactical Marcellus, each shell a .75 caliber mass-reactive explosive designed to penetrate armor and detonate inside the target. The rounds sparked harmlessly off Terminator plate. "They're in tactical dreadnought armor," Ventress shouted unnecessarily. His battle brothers could see that clearly enough. "Concentrated fire, target the joints." The Doomslayer had already identified the tactical problem. Terminator armor was effectively immune to standard bolter fire from the front, possessed superior firepower, and the traitors had numerical advantage 3-1. The Ultramarines were skilled, but skill alone wouldn't overcome such disparities. He needed to change the equation. The Slayer activated his equipment launcher despite his suit's protests about power consumption, sending a volley of ice bombs into the facility's entrance. The supercooled projectiles detonated in rapid succession, flash freezing a 20-meter radius and coating everything, floor, walls, Terminators, in a layer of ice several inches thick. It wouldn't stop them, but it would slow them, make their movements predictable. He followed up with his ballista, the Argent energy weapon humming to life despite operating at reduced capacity. His shots were surgical, each one targeting the frozen joints of the lead Terminators, where ice had compromised their servo systems. One traitor's knee joint exploded in a shower of ceramite and frozen lubricant, dropping him to the ground. Another took a shot to his elbow, his storm bolter tumbling from nerveless fingers. "What in the warp?" Brother Typhon exclaimed, his Terminator armor's auto-senses struggling to identify the energy signature of the Slayer's weapons. "That's not Imperial tech." "Irrelevant," Culton snapped. "Advance through the kill zone. Heavy flamers, clear the ice. The rest of you, suppressing fire." Promethium gel erupted from 2 Terminators' weapons, sheets of liquid fire that vaporized the ice and turned the facility's entrance into an inferno. The Ultramarines were forced back, their lighter armor unable to withstand direct contact with the flames. But the Slayer's Praetor suit had been designed to operate in Hell's foundries. This was merely uncomfortable. He walked through the flames, his damaged armor protesting but holding, and delivered a point-blank super shotgun blast into the nearest Terminator's gorget seal. At this range, even Terminator armor couldn't fully protect against Argent-charged buckshot. The traitor staggered, his helmet seal compromised. Toxic air from Chthonia's surface flooding into his armor's atmosphere. But there were still 10 more, and the Slayer's power reserves dropped another 5% with each shot. Brother Tiberius had found their exit, a maintenance tunnel in the facility's sub-level, too narrow for Terminators, but perfect for regular power armor. "Sergeant, exfil route secured." "Fall back," Ventress ordered, laying down covering fire as Marcellus retreated toward the tunnel. Fighting withdrawal by the numbers. The Slayer understood immediately. They couldn't win this engagement, but they could escape it. He switched to his rocket launcher, spending precious ammunition to provide the heaviest covering fire possible. 6 missiles streaked toward the advancing Terminators, each detonating with enough force to crack even their heavy armor, and by crucial seconds. Sergeant Ventress grabbed the Slayer's arm as he passed, pulling him toward the tunnel. "Move! We can't carry you if you fall!" The Slayer yanked his arm free. He needed no one's help, but followed the tactical logic. His motion tracker showed the Terminators recovering from the missile barrage, already moving to flank their position. Staying meant death or capture, neither of which served his mission. They descended into the maintenance tunnel, a claustrophobic passage that forced them to move single file through decades of industrial grime and corroded piping. Behind them, they could hear the Terminators' frustrated roars echoing through the facility, followed by the distinctive sound of demolition charges. "They're bringing down the entrance," Marcellus reported, his armor's sensors picking up seismic disturbances. "Trying to trap us underground." "Then we go deeper," Ventress decided. "These tunnels connect to the old mining network, hundreds of kilometers of passages. They can't cover them all." They moved through the darkness, their helmet lamps cutting through air thick with centuries of dust and chemical residue. The Slayer's damaged armor struggled with the uneven terrain, his compromised servos making every step a challenge. His suit estimated another 15% power loss by the time they reached safety, dropping him below combat-effective thresholds. After 20 minutes of navigation through increasingly narrow passages, they emerged into a larger chamber, an old mining depot where ore carts had once been loaded for surface transport. Brother Tiberius immediately began sealing the entrance they'd used, setting charges that would collapse the tunnel behind them. Ventress turned to the Slayer, studying the exotic armor with a tactical officer's eye. "You're running on reserves. How long before your combat ineffective?" The Slayer held up 2 fingers, then made a circular motion. Approximately 2 hours before critical shutdown, longer before full combat capability returned. "We can give you that time. These tunnels are a maze. The traitors will take hours to search them systematically." Ventress removed his helmet, revealing a face that was young despite the warrior's obvious experience, marked with ritual scars of devotion to the Emperor. "But after that, we need to talk. About what you are, what you're doing here, and how we can help each other." The Slayer considered refusing, simply leaving once his armor reached minimum operational capacity. These warriors had served their purpose, providing the distraction necessary for tactical withdrawal. He owed them nothing beyond that momentary alliance. But his suit's analysis of the wider situation suggested that solo operations might not be optimal in this dimension. The scale of chaos corruption was enormous, spanning entire star systems, backed by entities that could manifest physical power across interstellar distances. Fighting that alone would be inefficient. And the Doomslayer, for all his fury and determination, had learned through millennia of warfare that efficiency won wars. He gave a single, reluctant nod. Talk, exchange information, then decide if these warriors were assets or liabilities. Ventress smiled slightly, recognizing the grudging acceptance. "Good. Because I've seen what you can do, warrior. The way you fought, the weapons you carry, the technology in your armor. You're not just powerful, you're exactly what the Imperium needs in its darkest hour." The sergeant's expression grew serious. "Horus has betrayed the Emperor, torn the Imperium in half, and corrupted entire legions to chaos worship. Terror itself will soon be under siege, and the Warmaster commands forces that could overwhelm even the Imperial Palace's defenses. The war we're fighting isn't just for territory or ideology, it's for humanity's very survival." He leaned forward, his voice carrying the intensity of true belief. "But you kill demons permanently. You resist chaos corruption. You fight with weapons that make even greater demons fall. If you could be convinced to join the Loyalist cause, to bring your power to Terra's defense. Ventress left the sentence unfinished, but the implication was clear. One warrior, no matter how powerful, couldn't turn the tide of a galactic civil war, but a warrior who could permanently end greater demons, who could stand against Primarchs, who possessed technology beyond anything either side commanded. That might make the difference between extinction and survival. The Slayer sat against the chamber's wall, his armor's repair systems continuing their work, while his tactical database processed everything he'd learned. A galaxy in flames, humanity divided, demons walking openly and corrupting millions, and somewhere, apparently, a figure called the Emperor, who sat on a golden throne and had once led humanity's greatest expansion. It was familiar territory, just scaled up beyond anything he'd dealt with before. His helmet's cracked visor reflected the tunnel's darkness, hiding any expression he might have worn. But inside his thoughts, a decision crystallized with the clarity that came from absolute purpose. He would gather intelligence. He would learn the scope of Chaos's corruption in this dimension. He would identify the highest value targets, the entities whose permanent death would cause maximum disruption to demonic operations. And then he would do what he'd always done, what he'd been doing since before recorded history began: rip and tear until it was done. The mining depot became a temporary sanctuary as hours passed in tense silence. The Ultramarines took turns on watch while their equipment performed field repairs, their own armor bearing damage from whatever engagement had brought them to Cthonia in the first place. The Doomslayer remained motionless against the wall, his suit's systems working with mechanical efficiency to restore combat capability. Sergeant Ventress eventually broke the silence, his voice carrying the measured tones of someone choosing words carefully. The Warmaster, Horus Lupercal, was once the greatest of us, the Emperor's most favored son, a being crafted to be the perfect general, the ideal leader. We followed him across the galaxy, believed in his vision of humanity united and strong. He stared at his bolter, running diagnostic checks that were more habit than necessity. Then he was corrupted. The exact details are classified even from most of us, but the result is clear enough. He turned half the Space Marine legions against the Emperor, convinced them that our father was a tyrant who needed to be overthrown. Now brother fights brother, and the Imperium tears itself apart while Xenos and Daemons feast on the corpses. Tactical Marcellus joined the conversation, his voice harder, more bitter. What the sergeant isn't saying is that we're losing. The traitor legions were the best of us, the Lunar Wolves, the Emperor's children, the Death Guard, the World Eaters, entire legions with all their resources, their fleets, their gene-forged might, all turned toward Terra. The Loyalists are scattered, trying to reach the throne world before the siege begins, but many won't make it in time. "We'll make it," Ventress said with quiet certainty. "The Emperor protects." "Does he?" Brother Tiberius asked from his watch position, the question carrying a doubt that would have been heresy in other circumstances. "We've lost entire sectors, billions dead, demons walking openly on worlds that were once the Imperium's crown jewels. If the Emperor protects, he's doing a poor job of it." The Slayer listened to this exchange, his suit's translator parsing not just the words, but the subtext, the strain in these warriors' voices, the cracks in their certainty. He'd heard similar conversations before in his own dimension, right before civilizations collapsed or humanity made its last desperate stands. It was the sound of soldiers who'd fought too long, seen too much, and were beginning to wonder if victory was even possible. His armor pinged. Repairs had reached minimum operational threshold. Primary weapons functional, mobility restored to 75%, power reserves sufficient for extended combat. Not ideal, but adequate. He stood, the movement smooth despite lingering damage, and all three Ultramarines immediately came alert. "You're leaving," Ventress stated rather than asked. reading the body language clearly enough. The Slayer nodded once. His temporary alliance with these warriors had served its purpose. Now he needed to operate independently, to hunt without complications or obligations. Wait, Ventress stepped forward, pulling a data slate from his belt. If you're determined to fight chaos, you'll need targets. Real targets, not just scattered warbands and corrupted hives. He activated the slate, displaying a star map marked with tactical notations. These are confirmed chaos strongholds, worlds where traitor legions have established bases, systems where demonic incursions are permanent, sectors where the warp bleeds into reality. The sergeant highlighted 3 locations in particular. Cthonia, where the traitors massacred Loyalist legions in the war's opening betrayal. The world is now a monument to chaos, crawling with demons and corrupted marines. Cthonia, destroyed by the word-bearers through sorcery and treachery, its surface burning with warp fire, and Prospero, former home of the Thousand Suns Legion, now a demon world where reality itself has collapsed. He looked directly at the Slayer's cracked visor. Any of those worlds represents a critical chaos stronghold. Their destruction or purification would be a major blow to the traitor war effort. If you're as powerful as you've demonstrated, if you truly are incorruptible, Ventress let the implication hang. The Slayer took the data slate, his armor's systems immediately interfacing with it and downloading the information. His tactical database processed the intelligence, cross-referencing it with everything he'd learned about this dimension's conflicts, and began constructing a campaign strategy. 3 major targets, each one a concentration of demonic activity dense enough to register as maximum threat level. Each one requiring significant force to assault, let alone purify. Each one exactly the kind of challenge that would draw out powerful enemies and provide opportunities for high-value elimination. There's one more thing, Ventress said carefully. Terra, the throne world, home to the Imperial Palace and the Emperor himself. That's where this war will ultimately be decided. If Horus takes Terra, if he sits upon the Golden Throne, the Imperium falls and chaos claims the galaxy. But if Terra holds, if the Emperor can defeat his wayward son, the sergeant's voice grew intense with desperate hope. They say the Emperor is the most powerful psyker in human history, that his will alone holds back the full fury of the warp. If anyone could understand what you are, could help you fight chaos more effectively, it would be him. The Custodes guard Terra with devotion beyond our comprehension, and the Imperial fists are fortifying it into the greatest fortress the galaxy has ever seen. Marcellus added his own perspective, practical and tactical. But Terra is under lockdown. Getting there requires navigating the warp, and the warp routes are compromised by traitor fleets and demonic storms. Even if you wanted to go, actually reaching the throne world would be a campaign in itself. The Slayer considered this information with his characteristic silence. Terra, the heart of this dimension's humanity, home to the figure these warriors called Emperor. Logic suggested it would be a strategic target, a place where his capabilities could have maximum impact if the siege Ventress mentioned came to pass. But logic also suggested that traveling to a fortified world full of suspicious soldiers and religious zealots who would demand explanations he couldn't or wouldn't give was tactically inadvisable. Better to operate independently, to strike at chaos strongholds where his actions spoke louder than any words. He made his decision, inputting commands into the data slate. His armor's systems accessed coordinates for Cthonia, the first target, the closest major chaos concentration, a world described as a monument to betrayal, crawling with demons and traitor marines. Perfect. He returned the slate to Ventress, the coordinates displayed clearly on its screen. The sergeant's eyes widened. Cthonia, that's suicide. An entire system controlled by the traitors, defended by warships and orbital platforms, the surface occupied by multiple traitor legions. One warrior, even one as powerful as you. He trailed off, seeing the absolute certainty in the Slayer's posture. Emperor, preserve us. You're actually going to do it, Tiberius breathed. You're going to assault a chaos-held world. Alone. The Slayer walked toward the tunnel exit that led deeper into the mining network, toward passages that would eventually reach the surface. He paused at the threshold, looking back at the 3 Ultramarines who'd fought alongside him, however briefly. Sergeant Ventress saluted, fist over heart in the imperial manner. May the Emperor protect you, warrior, and if you survive Istvan, if you actually manage to hurt the traitors there, send word. There are those of us who would fight beside you, who would follow a champion capable of truly harming chaos. The Slayer didn't return the salute, didn't acknowledge the offer. He simply turned and disappeared into the darkness, his armor's systems plotting navigation routes through hundreds of kilometers of abandoned tunnels. Behind him, the 3 Space Marines stood in silence, each contemplating what they'd just witnessed. Do you think he'll survive? Marcellus asked quietly. Ventress was silent for a long moment before answering. I think we just met something that chaos should fear more than we fear it. Whatever that warrior is, whatever dimension spawned something so utterly dedicated to fighting demons, the traitors have no idea what's coming for them. And Terra, Tiberius pressed, will he eventually go there? Will he fight for the Emperor? I don't think he fights for anyone, Ventress said thoughtfully. Not for the Emperor, not for the Imperium, probably not even for humanity. He fights against chaos because that's what he is, a weapon given purpose, vengeance made manifest. We can't command him, can't control him, probably can't even communicate with him effectively. The sergeant gathered his equipment, preparing to lead his brothers back toward their own insertion point and the mission that had brought them to Cthonia. But we can point him at our enemies and pray he tears through them the way he tore through that hive. If he survives Istvan, if he continues his crusade against the traitor strongholds, Ventress smiled grimly. Maybe this war isn't as hopeless as we thought. Maybe the Emperor sent us exactly what we needed, even if he sent it from beyond our reality. A warrior who cannot be corrupted, cannot be turned, cannot be stopped. The 3 Ultramarines departed through their own route, leaving the depot empty except for shadows and the fading echoes of bootsteps. But the story of what had happened on Cthonia, of the impossible warrior who'd fought Horus Lupercal himself and survived, would spread through Loyalist forces like wildfire. And on Istvan V, where traitor legions celebrated their victory and demons fed on lingering death, something new was coming. Something that wouldn't negotiate, wouldn't surrender, wouldn't stop. The Doomslayer was bringing his crusade to the heart of Chaos territory, and Hell itself was about to learn what it felt like to be hunted. The journey to Istvan V took longer than the Doomslayer would have preferred, but his damaged armor required full repairs before attempting an assault on a chaos-held world. He'd found a derelict Imperial vessel in Chthonia's orbit, a transport that had been gutted during the early stages of the rebellion and left to drift among the orbital debris field. The ship's power core still functioned, providing energy for his armor's regeneration systems and giving him time to analyze the intelligence Ventress had provided. Istvan V, the drop site massacre, they called it, where 7 legions had descended to bring traitors to justice, only to discover that 4 of those legions had already turned to chaos. The betrayal had been absolute, loyalists slaughtered by the thousands, their gene seed harvested, their bodies defiled, their honor trampled. The planet had become a trophy for the traitors, a monument to their greatest victory and the Imperium's most devastating defeat. The Slayer's tactical database processed orbital surveillance data that Ventress had included, building a 3-dimensional map of the planet's current state. The primary landing zones were now fortified positions housing elements from multiple traitor legions, Iron Warriors, Word-bearers, Night Lords, and scattered warbands from others. Demon manifestations were constant, reality thin enough that the warp bled through in permanent tears that spat horrors into the materium with regularity. Target-rich environment, his systems assessed. High-value elimination opportunities, extensive demon presence, significant chaos infrastructure, optimal location for sustained combat operations. When his armor finally reached full operational capacity, all systems green, all weapons loaded, power reserves at maximum, the Slayer programmed the derelict transport for a collision course with Istvan V's largest concentration of warp activity. He would ride the ship down, use it as a crude kinetic weapon, and emerge into the resulting chaos already fighting. Simple, direct, effective. The transport's hull screamed as it entered Istvan V's atmosphere, atmospheric friction turning it into a meteor that orbital defenses initially dismissed as debris. By the time the traitor forces realized it was under thrust, actively steering toward their primary fortress, it was too late to mount an effective response. The vessel impacted the fortress's outer wall with the force of an artillery barrage, vaporizing itself and 3 city blocks of corrupted architecture in a fireball that registered on sensors across the continent. The Doomslayer walked out of the flames, his armor unmarked, his weapons ready, and began his crusade. The first traitor Marines to respond were Iron Warriors, siege specialists in brutally functional armor, their tactical doctrine built around overwhelming firepower and methodical destruction. A full tactical squad, 10 veterans of 100 campaigns, opened fire with bolt weapons and plasma guns calibrated to penetrate power armor at range. They died in under 20 seconds. The Slayer moved through their firing lines like smoke, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to track and dodge individual bolter rounds. His super shotgun answered their volleys with argent charge destruction that punched through ceramite like tissue paper. When one Iron Warrior tried to engage in melee, trusting his power fist and centuries of combat experience, the Slayer caught his arm mid-swing, broke it at 3 points, and used the stunned Marine as a shield against his brother's fire before discarding the body and continuing his advance. Alarms screamed across the fortress. Vox channels exploded with confused reports of a single attacker who fought like nothing they'd encountered. Demon princes stirred from their lairs, sensing an anomaly in the materium, something that registered as prey but radiated the kind of threat that made even warp entities hesitate. The Slayer cared about none of it. He'd locked onto the largest demonic signature within the fortress, something greater demon class, probably Cornite based on the energy profile, and was moving directly toward it. Everything between him and that target was an obstacle to be eliminated. Word-bearers' chaplains tried to stop him with corrupted prayers and demonic summonings, calling forth lesser demons to swarm the intruder. The Slayer's flame belch turned their conjurations into ash, and his ballista sent precision shots through their ornate helmets before they could complete more powerful rituals. Night Lords attempted ambush tactics, using their terror tactics and stealth to approach from blind angles. But the Slayer's motion tracker saw them coming, and his combat shotgun had a solution for each one. By the time he reached the fortress's central cathedral, a corrupted place where the word-bearers had converted an imperial shrine into a temple of chaos undivided, the traitor forces had mobilized in strength. 30 Chaos Space Marines from multiple legions formed a defensive line before the cathedral's entrance, backed by support weapons and demon-possessed war machines. The Slayer assessed the force composition, calculated optimal assault vector, and activated his berserk power-up for the second time since arriving in this dimension. What followed wasn't a battle, it was extermination. He tore through their lines with hyper-enhanced speed and strength, his weapons firing with impossible accuracy, his movements too fast for even enhanced Astartes reflexes to track. Chaos Marines who'd survived the heresy's opening years, who'd fought in the drop site massacre itself, who'd thought themselves hardened against any horror, discovered that there were still things in the universe capable of making them feel fear. The greater demon, waiting inside the cathedral, Cabothon the Crimson, a bloodthirster who'd claimed 300 skulls during the massacre, emerged to confront this anomaly personally. It was larger than the demon the Slayer had killed on Cthonia, older, more powerful, carrying weapons that had been forged in the brass citadel itself. The fight lasted 4 minutes before the Slayer carved it apart with the crucible, its final scream echoing through the warp and causing every demon on Istvan Fair to pause in sudden, instinctive terror. Something was hunting them, something that could end them permanently, that felt no fear or corruption, that fought with such absolute purpose that even Chaos's grip on reality weakened in its presence. The Doomslayer stood in the cathedral's ruins, surrounded by the bodies of traitor Marines and the dissipating essence of a greater demon, and his helmet's display showed dozens more targets scattered across the planet's surface, fortresses to clear, demons to kill, Chaos champions to eliminate. He reloaded his weapons, checked his armor's integrity, and selected his next target from the tactical overlay. A word-bearer dark apostle named Erebus was reported to be in a fortress 300 kilometers to the east, one of the architects of the heresy itself, a figure whose corruption had helped damn the galaxy. High value, priority elimination. The Slayer began walking east, and behind him, the fortress burned with fires that even Chaos couldn't corrupt. Word of what had happened spread through the traitor forces on Istvan Fifth like a virus, passed from Vox channel to Vox channel, growing more distorted and terrified with each retelling. A lone warrior in green armor kills demons permanently, fights like a Primarch, cannot be stopped, cannot be corrupted, cannot be reasoned with, just keeps coming, keeps killing, keeps purging chaos wherever he finds it. Some traitors fled, abandoning their posts and seeking transport off-world. Others fortified their positions, preparing for the attack they knew was coming. The smart ones tried to triangulate the warrior's position and call for reinforcements. Maybe a combined assault by multiple legions could succeed where individuals failed. But deep down, in places they didn't want to acknowledge even to themselves, they knew the truth that Cabothon's death had proven. Chaos wasn't invincible. The warp's grip wasn't absolute, and something from beyond their reality had entered the war with the singular purpose of making chaos itself feel the terror it inflicted on others. The Doomslayer's crusade against Istvan Fifth had begun, and the planet that had been Chaos's greatest triumph was about to become its most humiliating defeat. One warrior, one mission, one absolute certainty. Rip and tear until it was done, and it was far from done. The war for Istvan V would rage for weeks, but its outcome was never truly in doubt. The Doomslayer moved across the planet's corrupted surface like a natural disaster given purpose. Each day marked by fortress walls breached, demon princes banished permanently, and chaos champions sent screaming into oblivion. The traitor legions, for all their power and dark blessings, discovered what demons in another reality had learned long ago. There were some forces in the universe that couldn't be stopped, only survived. Word of the green-armored warrior spread beyond Istvan Fee, carried by fleeing traitors and transmitted through astropathic channels that even chaos corruption couldn't completely suppress. Horus Lupercal, recovered from his wounds and preparing his march on terror, received the reports with a mixture of respect and calculation. He'd fought the warrior personally, had felt the bite of weapons that could truly end even Primarchs, and understood what his father's enemies now faced. Part of him, the part that remembered being the Emperor's brightest hope, almost smiled at the thought of chaos bleeding for once. But the Warmaster was committed to his rebellion, and a warrior who killed chaos forces with such efficiency was ultimately an obstacle to be dealt with, not an ally to be courted. Plans within plans began forming in Horus's strategic mind, ways to redirect this anomaly, to use him against specific targets, perhaps even to eventually contain or eliminate him if necessary. The Emperor, watching from his golden throne across impossible distances, felt the ripples of each demon permanently destroyed, each chaos stronghold purified. He saw in this warrior something unprecedented, a being who existed outside the warp's influence entirely, who fought his enemies with a purity of purpose that even his custodes couldn't match. Whether this was providence or simply cosmic chance, the master of mankind couldn't say, but he would watch, would prepare, and when the time came, would ensure that this weapon aimed at chaos found targets worthy of its fury. On loyalist worlds across the fragmenting Imperium, whispers began to spread among the common soldiers and desperate civilians. Stories of an angel of death who came not with the Emperor's light, but with something colder, more absolute, pure vengeance wearing green armor. Some called him a lost Primarch, others a Xenos weapon that had turned on chaos, and still others a demon-hunting demon, fighting fire with fire in the warp's own twisted logic. The truth was simpler and more terrifying than any of their speculation. He was a warrior who had fought for so long that war had become his only language, whose purpose had been refined across eons into a single, absolute directive. Find corruption, kill corruption, repeat until there was nothing left to kill. He'd done it in his own dimension until hell itself feared his return. Now he would do it here, in a galaxy that had never encountered anything quite like him. The collision of two realities, two infinite wars, had produced something that neither could have predicted. The 41st millennium's endless darkness had met a light that burned not with hope, but with fury, not with mercy, but with absolute judgment. And while the outcome of the Horus heresy remained uncertain, while Terra's fate hung in the balance and the Imperium tore itself apart, one thing had become crystal clear to every demon, every chaos champion, every corrupted soul in the galaxy. There was something hunting them now, something that couldn't be corrupted, couldn't be killed, couldn't be stopped. A slayer of demons who had crossed the barriers between dimensions to bring his crusade to their doorstep. In the grim darkness of the far future, where there is only war, the Doomslayer had found a war worth fighting, and he would fight it the only way he knew how. One demon at a time, one fortress at a time, one chaos stronghold at a time, until this galaxy learned what his reality had learned through blood and fire. Hell had come to the Warhammer 40K universe, but Hell wasn't wearing brass armor or carrying Kornati axes. Hell was a lone warrior in green plate, and for the first time in 10,000 years, chaos itself was learning what it felt like to be prey. The Emperor protects, the faithful said. But on Istvan V and a dozen other worlds where corruption bled into reality, where demons had thought themselves untouchable, a new prayer was whispered by those who'd witnessed the impossible. The Slayer hunts, and there is nowhere in this galaxy or the warp itself where chaos can hide from his fury. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun, and for every daemon, every traitor, every corrupted soul who'd thought themselves beyond judgment, the message was clear and written in the ashes of destroyed strongholds. He is coming. He is always coming. And when he arrives, there is only one ending. Rip and tear until it is done. The Emperor protects. More stories await.